The story begins with a philosophical narration. Everyone has at least once fantasized about romantic love with a handsome prince or a passionate affair, the best moment being when they are bathed in moonlight, nestled by the window. Perhaps this princess is dreaming of such love, such a scene, unconsciously blushing, softly calling out, "Your Highness." And it seems to have come true because the person she longs for is now in bed with her, like this, embraced by the prince. Behind those curtains, they spent a sweet night, intertwined, as if the distance between them was meaningless. If only today could last forever. The princess lets out continuous murmurs of pleasure. However, in this room, they're not just the two of them, but also a maid. Yes, any maid must wait here, she thinks, unless you are the woman in bed. Miss, this maid seems quite inconspicuous. She can only stand by helplessly, waiting for them to finish, with firm resolve, but she is also praying that her master's moans could be a little quieter. This maid may be very professional in this regard, training herself to let the sounds go in one ear and out the other. For a moment, a smile touched her lips, but a faint ache pulsed within. Will she call me after they're done? Do I really have to wait like this? What kind of perverse behavior is this? Then a hand pulls back the curtain. Perhaps the man wants to leave, and the princess wants to keep him. Your Highness, where are you going? The night is still young. The handsome young man who emerges from behind the curtain is the second son of Duke Bertino, Prince Killian. The maid froze, even though she was somewhat accustomed to it. Every time she would feel a deep worry in her heart, constantly blaming His Highness. Damn it, this show-off. No matter how handsome you are, you should cover up a bit. Ugh, how embarrassing. Then His Highness ordered her to be taken out, of course, by the maid. Yes, Your Highness. The plump maid quickly carried out her task, having previously held the young woman's clothes, thinking to herself, "Yep, that's how it should be. I've been standing here for hours. Oh, my legs." As soon as the door closed and the prince left, the maid immediately informed and reminded her, "You need to leave before the prince returns. Please get up." Unexpectedly, the maid received a resounding slap across the face, a sharp slap. Then, the girl flew into a rage, yelling and even insulting the maid. "You insolent thing! Who do you think you are, daring to send me away? I will wait here for His Highness to return. Get out." The maid was slapped, but she reminded herself to stay calm. "Hold on, Julietta, you must hold on. No place pays you better than this." Then she still informed her in a soft and respectful tone, "If His Highness finds out, I will be punished. So, you'll only get up if I call for an attendant?" Hearing this, the girl was startled and quickly wrapped herself in a blanket and got out of bed, but not forgetting to put on a haughty posture, cursing, how annoying. When I officially become the princess, I will definitely not let you off. Just you wait." The maid immediately saw that this young lady didn't want to bother with a servant like herself, but she also didn't want to be so directly and awkwardly kicked out. One interesting scene. After the girl obediently left the room, the maid had to carry out her next task, starting by yanking open the curtains to clear the lingering scent of intimacy. It was always like this, perhaps repeating this routine every night. She skillfully changed the sheets, thinking boldly, "I want to guide him to meet a decent girl, but since he's a prince, no girl dares to disrespect him." Finally, she ended her thoughts with a firm statement, even though it had nothing to do with her. At this moment, the prince walked in and coldly uttered two words, "Leave." She had to respond more completely, "Yes, Your Highness." "Your Highness, may I take this sheet to be washed and then bring it back?" Meanwhile, she thought to herself, "Pull your shirt up a bit, even if it's none of my business. Aren't you embarrassed?" The prince didn't seem to care much, nor did he find it too troublesome, simply replying, "Hurry up." After the girl left the room, she reminded herself not to react to anything she saw or felt. Calmness and indifference were the only qualities recognized. Other maids had been dismissed simply for making a fuss. When they witnessed such scenes, at this point, the maid formally introduced herself. "I am Julietta, the one in charge of the prince's secret missions, which is to say, the one who endures the wrath of his women every night." Upon entering the bathroom, she splashed water on her face, keeping herself awake. Livelihood was paramount. The next step was to remove the thick, outdated wig. She even had a sigh, such a bother. Once she removed her makeup, the wig, and the glasses that masked her beauty, our girl looked even more stunning, with smooth, voluminous blonde hair. Wearing that wig for so long had truly exhausted her. The moment she returned to her small room, she collapsed onto the bed with a sigh. "I'm so tired today." It took a while before she felt a chill, then abruptly jumped up, her face pale, her beautiful hair soaked in a puddle. Water? This isn't sewage, is it? Not only that, but water was dripping everywhere. Ugh, I made a rookie mistake, lying down without checking the bed. My pride has taken a serious hit. I'm going crazy. Perhaps out of malice and jealousy, someone always did such things to Julietta. But it was late, and our heroine was so tired from making other people's beds that she couldn't even be bothered to make her own, so she simply spread a mattress on the floor. After all, she needed a decent sleep. If even sleeping was this troublesome, it would be too much. Perhaps. The next day had already begun, as calls for Julietta echoed incessantly. She hadn't even had time to properly fix her wig before she rushed towards the source of the summons. Yes, I'm coming. I'll be right there. She arrived at the fabric room, where everyone was sewing. Julietta, you must alter these trousers today, do you hear me? Not wanting to hear any more scolding, she quickly grabbed the trousers and replied, I'll do it right now. The supervisor added, the performance is only an hour away. What have you been doing all this time? She also asked if Lady Lillian's praise had gone to her head. Lillian was likely some noblewoman. Julietta felt a flicker of annoyance when others interfered in her private affairs, especially when they were being unreasonable. Then she replied, I'll fix it and bring it over immediately. However, it wasn't until she reached the doorway, ensuring she was far enough away to avoid being hit, that Julietta finally dared to voice her true feelings. But this is just a simple alteration. Did you really need to call me? If you had asked Emily earlier, it would have been done by now. As expected, the manager was enraged. This girl has grown up, but it seems only her head has gotten bigger. The girl beside her chimed in. Just her head. Her body is fully developed. Julietta is 17 now. Sophie, in the bloom of youth, couldn't hide it, no matter how she tried. That's why I'm worried. Compared to ordinary people, her appearance isn't considered beautiful, and the way men look at her is truly frightening. The two women were gossiping about their younger colleague, likely having worked together for a long time. Julietta, that poor child, is the Marquis' illegitimate daughter. So you want to send her back to the Marquis? Fine. The Marchioness isn't that scary. Don't you remember Julietta's mother, Stella? When she passed away, I really don't know what headmaid Maribel was thinking back then, actually accepting and taking on the responsibility of raising that 5-year-old child. It turned out her protagonist, Julietta, was raised by the maids here. Even without the wig, Julietta could be considered a beauty, yet the girls here remarked, that little thing has grown up, but hasn't matured one bit. That's the feeling one gets when looking at a child left by the lakeside. That's the unease seen in the eyes of others. The two girls ended their conversation. Julietta, beside them, finished the last stitch. Perfect, all done. She sat by the window, holding up the trousers for a final inspection. If she delivered them herself, people would surely give her strange looks. She felt it too, clearly aware of what Abe Lena was worried about. Money, fame, power, or popularity, she had none. She was just an ordinary girl with a bit of beauty, and that was truly tragic. Luckily, as soon as she stepped outside, she spotted a figure. Hey boy. She decided to make a deal with this adorable child. If you can deliver these trousers to the actor, Jocko, I'll pay you with cookies, okay? She decided to strike a bargain with this cute kid. Waiting for a breeze to pass, she thought to herself, living a life controlled by others since the age of 5 is enough. I need to talk to Maribel. Back in the past, when Julietta was 5 years old, the little blonde girl was incredibly terrified of something incredibly cruel. She was kicked out, standing outside the gates of the house where she was born, the girl frozen in fear. Fortunately, a soldier came over to comfort her. Miss, the Marchioness is just momentarily upset. Please don't worry. It's early spring, and the weather's a bit chilly. Are you cold, miss? The girl was strong, and she sighed, I'm fine, Zimmer. But the Marchioness suddenly became silent. Why did she suddenly drive us away? The man seemed confused, unsure if he should speak, then stammered, I heard that the Marchioness recently gave birth to an heir. Perhaps it's because of this. So because the legal wife gave birth to a son, a thorn in her side, the concubine's child was also driven out, right? The 5-year-old girl put her hands on her hips, speaking like a little adult, though it was likely to mask her disappointment. Seeing this, the young man thought, Miss, are these really the words of a 5-year-old? At this moment, a beautiful young girl sitting under a tree was also sobbing. No wonder the Marquis hasn't paid much attention to us these past few months. Is it because of this? Julietta, my darling. Then she embraced little Julietta. 5-year-old Julietta, my daughter, perhaps we're better off now. The mother was frail, but Julietta wasn't. The girl, possessing a rather tough spirit, immediately said, "Mother, snap out of it. First, we can't stay here any longer, so maybe we should think about where else we can go. If we hesitate any longer, it'll be dark soon." Seeing her daughter so sensible, the emotional mother teared up. "Julietta, who did you get the strength from?" "Well, first we have to move. Staying here won't change anything." Both mother and daughter were at their wits' end, and an indifferent soldier reluctantly joined them. "Madam, I should be heading home. I can only escort you to where you wish to go." It turns out, the truth we speak of isn't what we hear or see. The protagonist then confessed. "The truth is, I'm not Julietta, that little girl who was only 5, clinging to her mother's skirt. Because the carriage was so bumpy, my real name is Anna." At this point, Julietta's face turned pale, and she had to bite her lip hard to keep from throwing up. "I'm living inside a child's body, getting carsick even from just a carriage ride. This really isn't what I wanted. I thought that even as the Marquis' illegitimate daughter, I wouldn't lack anything, and I've always been at ease thinking this. But now my life is as precarious as a candle in the wind." The carriage finally stopped. "Madam, miss, we've arrived." The mother stopped crying and reached out to take her little daughter's hand. "Let's go. This is where I used to work. If we say we're just staying for a while, they'll let us stay." 5-year-old Julietta and Anna, of an unknown age, were filled with worry and gloom as they faced this first turning point in their lives. Mother held my hand the whole way, and we arrived in front of a magnificent building. For some reason, my heart was filled with excitement. Of course, I later realized how foolish that was. Escaping from the memories of the past, back to the present. The money in her hand was Julietta's upbringing fee. It always had been. On the day she officially turned 17, she would become Duke Miguel's mistress. Julietta immediately pictured the Marchioness laughing loudly. "Ha!" with the contract in her hand. "They'll never let us bloodless people live here for free." An older lady was smoking and chatting. "If I tell you, can you give me that money?" The lady was calm. "Look at you, Julietta, you're still so naive. Why do you think this will be over in one go? If the Duke notices you, then my relationship with him will only get better. In the future, even if the Duke isn't satisfied with you, there are other nobles, aren't there? I'm talking about your beauty once you remove your disguise." Julietta was incredibly frustrated. Maribel, this shameless person, even though she's the head maid, sold me to someone older than my father, just to repay the debt of raising me. I have to escape this absurd place as soon as possible. Julietta was neither naive nor easily subdued. She stood before the woman with her hands on her hips. "Tell me, it won't hurt the troop leader at all. The money you get from Duke Miguel, or the money given to me, it's all the same, isn't it?" Currently in Maribel's troop, yet the troop leader of Eileen's is still asking. "Say that again." Julietta refused to give up. "I'm asking how much my ransom is, the amount she received from Duke Miguel." Maribel displayed her qualities as a troop leader, still able to joke. "If the Duke dies, your life will shine even brighter." Julietta's eyes even sparkled incredibly brightly. "Happy? Oh my God, but absolutely can't let that happen." Julietta angrily tore apart the staged act of the troop leader. "Just thinking about it makes me sick. If I vomit on the Marquis' face in bed, my life will be over that day. Am I really saying goodbye to life at 17? This life is ours, even if we have to wear a disguise for the rest of our lives. It's 100,000 times better than ascending to heaven naked in bed. I will do everything I can to silently get revenge on you. I will make you feel uneasy all the time," Julietta fiercely declared. She said, "I'm admired by Duke Miguel. When this gets to the Duke, he won't let you off the hook." Then, Julietta immediately stepped forward, closer to the troop leader. "I'm doing this to repay her for taking care of me. Rather than hurting each other, isn't it better to strike first?" The troop leader couldn't help but click her tongue. "So, you finally understand the grace of upbringing." One last time, Julietta was determined to get this information. "Now tell me my ransom." 5,000 ethers, the troop leader said, smirking as she raised her hand. Although she had never met this person directly, the amount was much more than she had imagined. "Isn't it just saying, I'll introduce you after hearing the reason? A big fish has been caught." At this moment, Julietta's arms trembled on the armrest, but she didn't give up, turning around to say, "Thank you for telling me. I have to try my best." It turned out that in the troop leader's mind, even though I mentioned double the amount, this girl isn't panicking at all. She thought this girl was unusual, but it turned out she was truly a brave child. As soon as the door creaked shut, Julietta's expression completely changed. She smiled bitterly. 5,000 ethers. She really wanted to cry. She was going crazy. What should I do now? She sat by the door, holding her head and sighing, trying to calm herself down, telling herself it wasn't real. No, Julietta, calm down and think carefully. Thinking back, Morgan had mentioned that the Marquis would be attending this opening ceremony. At that time, she saw him jotting down a list of the Marquis's favorite drinks and wines. Yes, this is the chance fate has given me. Although the ransom wasn't a small amount, it was clear that before giving up, she had to give it a try. She had no choice but to calm down and face it. In a grand hall, bustling with chatter and the air of a large performance venue, a conversation sparked. Morgan, could that be the Marquis of the East District? Indeed, it is, Morgan replied, his memory impressive as ever. I've known him for a decade. He hasn't aged a day, still quite handsome. Indeed, the man possessed the same golden hair and blue eyes as Julietta. A pang of melancholy struck her. She held no fond memories of the man who had abandoned his responsibilities, leaving her and her mother. She couldn't even clearly recall his features. But what was this strange yearning she felt? She quickly rallied, clenching her fists. No, focus. That man is the one who heartlessly abandoned his own children without a shred of remorse. Was it a parent's duty to abandon their children? Of course not, but simply because he didn't cherish them and held the power to do so. He had done just that. Would he really spend 5,000 ethers for his child? Impossible. He had already made his choice to leave them. He was watching, and suddenly he turned. A young girl came running, calling out, "Papa," excitedly chatting with him, delighted that her father had kept his promise. The girl, beautifully dressed, laughed, and chatted merrily. Even though Papa doesn't like opera, it's my birthday today. I really wanted to enjoy the opera with you. Papa, Mama, and Pierre will be here soon. As they spoke, Morgan turned aside, but the figures were gone. Oh, Julietta! The stage door closed. Julietta stormed off, clearly feeling the sting of silent dismissal. Even though she was a daughter too, she desperately wanted to know where the Marquis had gone. She strode off, still berating herself. Julietta, you fool. She not only stomped her feet, but swung her arms to release her anger. Even if he was her biological father, they hadn't seen each other in over a decade, so he likely wouldn't care how she was doing. Even if she was his flesh and blood, he would never spend 5,000 ethers to buy her back. She had considered asking him for help, but witnessing that heartwarming scene between the father who had cruelly abandoned her and his other child, Julietta felt deeply wounded. If he truly loved his children, he wouldn't have left me to wander in this dangerous theater full of perverts until now, she thought, recalling the smile on the young lady's face, making Julietta even angrier. So, stop having such foolish dreams. Julietta made up her mind. Then, Julietta flung open the theater door and declared angrily, "Let me pay it off in 80 months. She had returned to the troop leader's room, but the woman simply replied, "If you're going to be ridiculous, get out. I don't have time for your games." She stepped closer. "This is about my life, so I'm not joking at all. I can earn about 70 ethers a month. So, in terms of the ransom, it will take approximately 80 months. Having thought it through, she boldly challenged the woman. So, make your choice. 1, you will gain my favor and gratitude. Or 2, you will earn my hatred, and I will seek revenge. At this moment, the troop leader was quietly considering the situation. After all, this girl has noble blood, so we can't be sure what might happen in the future. All right, then if we accept your proposal, how will you calculate the interest for those 6 years? She continued to make things difficult, adding interest to the equation. No interest. She raised her hand, stating firmly, in this negotiation, she couldn't afford to be at a disadvantage. Because I've been working for the theater for free all this time. Since you received 5,000 ethers to take care of me, I should also get back the money for the time I work for free at the theater, shouldn't I? The troop leader hadn't expected this. As she earnestly made her proposal, the woman suddenly burst into laughter, her whole body shaking. She thought to herself, such a pity, such a pity. She truly didn't have the heart to harm this precious child. Her laughter hadn't subsided, for she had many thoughts. There were plenty of people crueler than her, pretending to joke with the girl. In comparison, she had already shown this impertinent child a great deal of affection. All right, the troop leader conceded, a hint of amusement in her voice. I accept your proposal, but we should have a formal IOU between us. Fine, Julietta replied, her own voice firm. Then make a copy, and we'll need another witness. A flicker of determination lit her eyes. Once the IOU is settled, I'm leaving this theater. It'll be difficult, but it's the only way I can be independent and take responsibility for my own life. When they encountered the two other girls in the sewing room, their faces were far from pleased. In fact, they looked rather disagreeable. I heard you've decided to leave the theater, one of them asked, her tone laced with skepticism. Yes, Julietta answered calmly. I'm going to be a maid. She casually expressed her future plans and intentions, but they weren't happy in the slightest. Hey kid, do you know how dangerous being a maid can be? What if something happens? Their concern, though tinged with disapproval, was evident. Compared to now, Julietta explained, a pragmatic glint in her eyes, I'll disguise myself as an ugly, fat maid. Even if it's just a rumor, no one will want me. The thought of making herself unattractive wasn't pleasant. It felt like a self-inflicted humiliation. But I don't want to see the lifeless look in the eyes of those trapped by that kind of power. The older woman was gentler, respecting Julietta's decision, only asking, oh my, what did you do to stuff all those flowers inside your body? Julietta, can you even work with such an inconvenience? Seeing their concern warmed Julietta's heart, but her resolve remained unshaken. I have no other choice, she replied softly. Everything that happened 13 years ago, the day I took over the body of a 5-year-old, changed my fate in an instant. The memory of that inexplicable event remained vivid. Anna's TV just won't turn on. She was a young woman with brown hair, dressed in modern clothes. Why hasn't this changed? Is it broken again? Finally, she gave up. I'll call the service center tomorrow, or just throw it away. The television was probably quite old. As she stood up to leave, a voice stopped her. Have you ever dreamed of a luxurious life? Then, a dog appeared on the broken TV screen. Haven't you dreamed of a new world? If you want to give up your current life, call Mommy. Anna wasn't even surprised. She just raised a hand to her forehead. What's wrong with me? Am I going crazy because I'm dealing with too many things at once? The dog moved closer on the screen. I'm fine. This is my chance. I'm the chosen one. If she wanted to escape her weary life, all she had to do was call Mommy. The dog's voice was incredibly sweet, laced with temptation. At that moment, Anna still couldn't believe her eyes and ears. Money. I have no friends, no parents, and my pockets are empty. Life might be miserable, but it's not enough to make me start hallucinating, right? So, as she absent-mindedly repeated the words she'd just heard, the system activated. Oh, congratulations. You have a good eye. Immediately, a blue light enveloped her. She stammered, wait a minute, but it was too late. The blue light transported her to another dimension. The dog was no longer on a TV screen, but beside her. Welcome to the House of Opportunity, Anna. Now, she could finally see a series of scenes and characters from another timeline, complete with old aristocratic costumes. How about it? Pretty interesting, isn't it? However, Anna still wondered what kind of dream this was. This isn't a dream. It has nothing to do with dreaming. Now it's time to choose a new world from the screen in front of you. Which one do you like best? Anna's life, it seemed, wasn't very fulfilling, and she didn't have any particular dreams to chase. So, caught up in this strange affair, she simply went with the flow. Everything felt like a scene from a movie, so it wasn't particularly engaging. Except for one scene, a scene that radiated the warmth of maternal love just by looking at it, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She reached out, wanting to touch it. That screen, it gave her a warm feeling. She didn't know that behind that scene lay a destiny of abandonment once more, with neither father nor mother. Satisfied with that screen, are you? But since we can't send a new soul into that world, you'll have to enter an empty shell that's already lost its soul. The dog controlling the room spoke, and Anna, upon hearing this, wanted to confirm. Wait, I have to enter an empty shell? Hold on. Stop. Wait a minute. Say that again. The little dog continued speaking on its own, regardless of whether Anna was ready to make a decision. I'd be happy to help Anna. All right, let's begin. 1, 2, 3. Fortunately, the dog stopped just in time. Anna, even if I am the administrator of multidimensional space, the commands for traversing different dimensions are extremely complex. If you press the wrong button, the dimension will disappear. What's the matter with you? Seeing that the dog had brought her here without asking, Anna was extremely displeased. What's wrong? You're suggesting I give up my current life and live in someone else's body, which I don't even know about. No way. If that's the case, I choose the 5th screen from before. Once you've made your choice, you can't change it, the dog replied calmly. But Anna rushed over and grabbed its neck. If that's the case, you should have explained it clearly from the beginning, shouldn't you? This is unprofessional. Hey, then give me some kind of power to save myself. Even if I cross over to another dimension, I should have something to survive with. Anna immediately came up with a plan to save her life. Seeing that the condition wasn't too demanding, the dog immediately agreed. All right, because money, I'm a super dog who can travel through dimensions. The super dog briefly declared before Anna left the room and entered the new world that her abilities would be randomly assigned, but Anna would have an advantage over anyone else. Really? You have to keep your promise. At that moment, she just thought, this is an interesting dream. Yeah, sometimes I have to have ridiculous dreams like this. Later, if I wake up, but clearly, this was a dream Anna couldn't wake up from. Compared to others, having an ability was still the best. As soon as she opened her eyes, she thought she had woken up from the dream. But no, she was in the body of a child named Julietta. Welcome to your new life. When Anna grows up in this body, there will be no one more amazing than her. This was the last message from that strange system. If someone more amazing than Anna appears, that person will disappear. Even if such a thing only happened once in the lifetime of someone with this effect set. This ability made little Julietta feel creeped out for the first time. Mommy, I will sincerely pray that you live happily in this second life. Good luck. Then it disappeared, leaving Anna frowning. Trying to turn me into an outright murderer, then she felt like she was about to collapse. The memories of the girl, Julietta, flooded into her mind, constantly overwhelming her. The memory that still lingered in this body was that of the Marquis's bastard child. Even without having to worry about food or shelter, or rather, if it must be the case of an illegitimate child, even simply thinking about it from any angle feels awful. Oh no, because it's a child body, I'm sleepy again. What nasty dog. Then Anna fell asleep, without any curiosity about her new life. She only thought, in the 90s, wasn't beautiful literature a woman's true weapon? A gift, you say? If you're going to bestow power, bestow real power. Just like that, Anna began her first sleep in the new world, looking every bit the lady. Back in the present, in the room filled with clothes and jewels, the three of them were still chatting. You mentioned earlier that you'll be working as a housekeeper at the Bernino mansion. Julietta answered while working. Yes, Lillian introduced me there. She's Count Radius's mistress now, so she can do that. Although it's not her parents' home, she still visits occasionally. So, that's the mansion that's hiring maids, is it? Come to think of it, I recently heard that Moira is the prince's mistress. Is she a new actress in our theater? Yes, the one whose nose is as tall as Landmark 81. A beautiful and glamorous girl in a performance costume. The famous Playboy prince, who knows how long that relationship will last. As she mentioned Prince Killian, Julietta also imagined him throwing his money around. What a bad guy. Why are you working as a maid there? That place really isn't suitable for unmarried women. Julietta just smiled after hearing this. Don't worry, Annie. I'm not a personal maid, just a servant doing cleaning work. As long as I disguise myself well, it'll be fine. It's all right. Oh, my Julietta, you can't live like this. Now, even wearing the clothes Julietta usually wore, she stepped out of the dressing room, feeling extremely uncomfortable and suffocated. Then she moved a little closer. Even disguised, it's still very inconvenient to move around. However, Julietta not only had to move around, but also clean quickly and do other tasks. Julietta was probably used to it by now, so she no longer felt inconvenienced. What she saw were the flaws in the padding. It's still a little revealing, but it covers well enough. Let's add some more padding here. The woman felt incredibly hot, took off her clothes, and then sighed, saying, "You're much prettier than me. Doesn't it bother you, having a hide of beauty?" This was precisely what Julietta had experienced and overcome. She had decided to do this for her livelihood, and when the time was right, she could show off later. The clothes were quickly tossed onto a chair. Seriously, why is Emily crying even harder? It's so annoying. But right now, I can't think of anything. Imagine how unbearable it will be in the hot summer. Julietta probably hasn't experienced that yet. She's only just started working. She's also quite special, isn't she? How about you swap bodies with me? The girls in the room certainly knew how to joke around. Then there was a knock at the door. Someone outside shouted, "Julietta, didn't you hear? The head maid is calling for you. Hurry up and go over there." They stood at the doorway, discussing work. After saying yes, she suddenly realized it was Prince Bettino they were greeting. Julietta's reaction surprised the head maid. Her voice is so loud this afternoon. He and Count Radius are going to see the opera. Everyone here is busy except for you. That's really strange. He's only been the master of this mansion for a week. Just a coincidence. Are you all right? The headmaid asked again, out of old acquaintance. Can you help me out today? Julietta sighed, hands on her hips. I know, all right. To see the royals, right? Fine. Just a moment. The headmaid actually said, you're going out dressed like that? Don't embarrass our theater. Change into something decent before you go. No way, she suddenly said. Pretty clothes only suit Lillian. I can't believe someone took that dress and said, Julietta, try this on. Lillian, how could I wear this? It's for the actresses, so it's a bit too revealing. So the headmaid figured there was no time for alterations, and she had to accept it. Fine, change into this outfit then. Then, the performance had already begun. The artists on stage were absolutely radiant, glowing with charisma. The previous performers were truly outstanding, earning countless rounds of applause. But the girls, the young ladies, were captivated by something else, their eyes unable to look away, completely ignoring the performance. Prince Killian rested his chin in his hand, bored. Aren't these people here to see this puppet opera? Why are they paying more attention to me than to the opera? The butler had to stop them from barging in. You can't enter this room. At this moment, the person sitting next to the prince spoke up. That's because you've stayed home for too long. So everyone's worried. This person was Marquis Radius, Killian's cousin. Anyway, you're already here, aren't you? Aren't you going to see Moira? Even if no one knows when you'll change lovers, she's your official girlfriend now. But Prince Killian just replied perfunctorily, stop talking nonsense and take care of your Lillian. Then, Prince Killian turned to the young butler, Jeff. Before any rumors spread, go with my aide and get a bouquet of flowers. Even if it's just for show. Even if you don't care about other people's reputations, if you don't want to be gossiped about for buying it, then you should listen to me. Just then, the figure of a slender, brown-haired young lady, Julietta, appeared outside the corridor, wearing an outfit she felt was a little too revealing. She still couldn't believe she ended up wearing such clothes, a rather glamorous attire. Is there anything more pleasing to the eye than this? I don't really care, but Hayes, let's just get this over with and go back. She quickly opened the door slightly and said, Your Highness, I apologize, but here is the wine you requested. He spoke curtly. Julietta felt something was amiss. Strange. Why isn't her personal attendant here? Why aren't you hurrying up? What are you doing? Prince Killian quickly lost his temper. Julietta could only say yes and immediately carried out her task. She struggled to hold the wine bottle. This was also her first time doing something like this. Oh no, what do I do now? Should I take it out? Wait, hold on. She exerted all her strength. Her face flushed red, but the bottle cap remained stubbornly unmoved. Mother, why won't it open? My hand is about to break. Just then, a popping sound rang out. Oh, it's open. Her hand gripped the bottle cap tightly, but the bottle itself wasn't held so securely. It flew towards the opposite side. As expected, it flew straight towards an object and instantly fell to the ground. The thing struck by the wine bottle made Julietta panic, her face paling. It was none other than the esteemed Prince Killian, who was about to fly into a rage because he couldn't drink his wine and his clothes were now stained. A trial flashed quickly through Julietta's mind. What's happening now? Spilling wine on the prince means losing my head. Now she just wanted to find a hole to crawl into and hide. Julietta immediately knelt at the prince's feet. Your Highness, please forgive me. I'll clean it up right away. Julietta was now in a complete panic. No good. It's an emergency. I have to wipe it with this. So she ripped the cloth covering her chest from her dress. I have to do this properly, no matter what. I'm done for. I'm going to be beheaded. At this moment, he might explode in fury, but no, her recent actions seemed to have completely relaxed the prince. Why don't we call the servants over? We have to say something, after all. It should be fine. Seeing that the prince remained calm and unscathed, Julietta raised her head. She noticed the prince's gaze lingering where it shouldn't. Realizing her exposure, she quickly covered herself with both hands, backing away from the prince as much as possible, her face burning crimson. Meanwhile, the prince, still maintaining his composure, said, It's just breasts. Why are you screaming like you're about to be devoured by a wild beast? He even added, It's too late to cover up now. She never thought she would be stared at like this. What's with this guy? Spencer, go see if Jeff has arrived at the right place. After changing your clothes, come back here. All right, she's pitiful. Don't go too far, Radius reminded Killian. I didn't expect you to stand up and walk towards her, even though you spilled the wine. But in return, I find you amusing, so I'll forgive you. But if you continue to wander around the theater like that, I don't think you'll be so lucky next time." Julietta thought to herself, "I don't understand anything, but I still need to give others some dignity. Well, whatever, it's best to save my head first." Julietta knew how to control herself, bowing humbly at a 90-degree angle, thanking His Highness for his kindness. "I'm very familiar with this theater. I'll go right away." Julietta quickly left without looking back, unlike those shameless girls attracted by the prince's charm. Back in her room, Julietta covered her face, her heart still pounding for what had just happened. Good heavens, I almost lost my head. The master of that mansion, thankfully, isn't too bad a person. That face is really handsome, although I didn't get a good look. I'll see him more often while working as a maid. Then she shrieked in embarrassment. Am I really going to dress like that there and immediately make an impression on someone? Julietta, be quiet. Night fell, and Prince Killian, as usual, changed into his pajamas and was still chuckling to himself. The maid he met at noon, her reaction was truly amusing. Moira, standing beside him, easily noticed the prince's goofy smile, but she didn't know why he was smiling. "Your Highness, what has you in such high spirits? Do tell Moira. You came to me today before dawn. It's still a while before daybreak. So it seems Prince Killian is in a good mood today. She's so talkative. Servants, come here." He frowned. Why aren't you answering? What irritated him the most, and was also most unavoidable, was that this maid was captivated by him. Her expression made it obvious. Not knowing how to restrain herself, she stared at him even more intently. He immediately shouted angrily, "Jeff! Albert!" The two butlers appeared quickly, only to lower their heads. "Albert, how long is this going to continue? Do I have to call you out myself? How did you teach them?" "Your Highness, the maids have eyes to see, but I can't take my mind off you. Why don't I have the male servants attend to you for the night?" The prince couldn't take it anymore. "Are you telling me now to let another man see a naked woman's body in my room?" So, the ludicrous butler offered a suggestion. "Then your Highness should go to the women's restroom." This really didn't solve anything. Prince Killian had had enough and didn't even bother to raise his voice. "Do you know what's in the women's room? Is it that hard to find a skilled maid?" Butler Albert knew this job was tough, but he still accepted it. "I apologize, Your Highness. This is my responsibility. I will find a perfect maid." Exactly 1 week had passed since that incident. Julietta had just gotten off the carriage and was about to enter the mansion. Oh my, is this mansion for relaxation? The mansion, built exclusively for the prince, was almost as large as a castle. His life is truly enviable. Julietta's disguise couldn't be more perfect. "As long as I can earn money, I can leave now. I'm going to live for my own freedom." I remember someone came to encourage Julietta before I left the theater. "Julietta, if anything happens, you must tell me." He then held Julietta's hand. "I know she's brave and independent, but she shouldn't make decisions on her own or do dangerous things." The girl was Irene, the lead singer of the troupe, along with her posse and others. "Do you understand?" Julietta finished applying her makeup. Her skin was now a deep brown. During this time, even just receiving her attention was enough for me. I'm truly grateful for her help at any time. Whenever I faced difficulties, truly, if Stella saw you all grown up, she would be very happy. Irene offered, "To commemorate you leaving the theater and starting a new job, I want to give you a gift. What do you want?" Julietta didn't hesitate. "In that case, I want a pair of glasses. Not the expensive kind worn by nobles. I mean the big, thick kind like Manager Allen wears. Even if no one notices me, I still need to disguise myself so that picky prince won't recognize me." This is Marquis Radius's letter of introduction. Julietta took out the letter as soon as she arrived at the mansion hall. The butler was puzzled at this moment. Even if introduced by the Marquis, "Your ladyship, how could you choose such a chubby, sloppy maid?" Julietta worked in the theater troupe and is also good at makeup, but how can that small face match such a sloppy figure? Her complexion looks gloomy, her hair color outdated, and those eyes, even thick glasses can't help. "Can you handle such a large physique?" The butler asked before assigning Julietta a trial task. She was to clean the guest rooms on the first floor, the hallways, and the servants' dining room. "Be careful not to appear in front of the prince while cleaning." Julietta nodded, accepting the task. "Yes, sir. Your room is on the 4th floor, next to the servants' dormitory stairs. Go up and put your things away, then come back here." Until clothes were provided for her, she could work in her own clothes. Remembering the butler's instructions, Julietta entered her new room. A small, simple room with sunlight streaming in, neither dark nor damp. Finally, It's no longer just a storage room. The place was small, but it had sunlight, a window, and it was her own room, making Julietta happy. And then I'll gradually improve my life. She felt certain of this. Once Maribel's debt was paid, she pondered her future as she decorated her new living quarters. I'm going to open a shop, save money. She was always sketching designs. Perhaps that was her life's dream. Looking at herself in the mirror, she realized that, first, she had to shake off this useless curse of being a small-town girl. The maids here had already begun their gossip. What's this? Is she the new maid? My goodness, look at her face. Julietta stood there, hearing everything. It's the first time I've seen someone fatter and uglier than me. Look at her hair. It could be used as a broom. Whether in her past life or this one, appearance was always what people cared about most. What did you do to your face? Don't tell me you've caught some contagious disease. They weren't just gossipy, they were incredibly rude. If money could give me control over beauty, money, a Christian believer, my sin is making myself ugly, ushering in an era of equality. There wasn't much time to explore and learn. The butler soon gathered everyone, announcing that the prince would be arriving tomorrow, so they should hurry and clean the hall and help out in the kitchen. If there's a speck of dust on any item, redo it all night long. If you don't want that, do it carefully from the start. Now go to your designated areas and begin working. Ollie, clean Miss Mora's room. If she complains like last time, I won't spare you. The mansion was huge. There truly was a lot to do. She would be working all day, and if she didn't finish, there would be no rest. So work hard. If you do, your belly fat will decrease too. I never thought a senior butler would say such harsh words. Don't feel bad about your decision. No matter where you are, people will always say unpleasant things to unattractive women. Whether I'm pretty or ugly, I'm always surrounded by this kind of indolence. It's truly just laughable. Yes, I will work hard. What should I do first? If that's the case, let's see if people think I'm timid. Julietta decided to test the hearts of the people here. Then she lifted her head, a friendly and confident expression spreading across her face. Just you wait and see, because I will respond with firmness and indifference. She had mostly finished her work and went to fetch water, thinking along the way. Once I get paid, I need to buy pens first. Too many tasks for my brain to process. Just as she arrived, a maid asked, "I'm cleaning here, are you new?" "Oh yes, I'm sorry, I didn't know this place was already taken." Julietta then announced, "From now on, I'll be working here. You can call me. I am Julietta." Then the maid said, feigning friendliness, "From today onwards, I'll also be working in the East Wing." So they will be working together. She extended her hand, smiling warmly. "Nice to meet you. You can call me Anna. I hope we get along well here." Since entering this mansion, this was the first time she had received a sincere greeting. Julietta replied cheerfully, "Yes, I hope you can help me out in the future." As expected, amidst the unreasonably enthusiastic welcome, I forgot to be wary of the other schemes about to unfold. That was Julietta's later remorse. I'll find out soon enough. The maid who had been so friendly on the first day now sat arrogantly in a chair, putting on the airs of a senior bullying a junior. "Julietta, did you check the window frames over there carefully?" "Oh my goodness, my nail broke. The butler is really strict, so wipe them 2 or 3 more times." At this point, only Julietta was working hard, and she even added an absurd remark. "Actually, I come from a baronial family, but due to some misunderstandings, I had to become a servant. But since I'll be serving the prince again, doesn't that mean my future will be comfortable?" Not only did she chatter endlessly, but she also mocked Julietta. So pitiful. The prince said, "You're absolutely forbidden from appearing in front of everyone." One of the most enjoyable things here is seeing the prince up close. Julietta replied, breathlessly, "For me, today's cleaning work is far more important than that. And if you continue to be this lazy today, I'll tell the butler." Julietta's words took the rude, made somewhat by surprise. "Hey, didn't you hear what I said yesterday?" It made her lazy, neglecting her work, and even attempting to threaten Julietta. Then she even repeated it, as if Julietta were a fool, merely doing cleaning work due to some misunderstanding. If she could serve the prince again, Julietta could work under her. She thought it was a big deal, but Julietta didn't care. "So, if you don't start working now, I'll go out and tell the butler." Julietta's firm attitude made the maid somewhat afraid, but she still wouldn't stop coercing others. "What? Hey, Julietta, how dare you?" Julietta pointed directly at her face. "Finish the work before I leave. I did that part yesterday. Today, I only need to mop the floor." So annoying. Then Julietta threw down the broom and left. As soon as the noise started, someone rushed over, calling for Anna. She pretended to grab the broom, and when someone walked in, they asked what happened. She had a habit of scheming and quickly came up with a plan, tears welling in her eyes, lamenting, "Oh, Nicole, is that you?" The other person still didn't know what had happened and quickly said, "I heard about it. It's the new one, the strange-looking servant this time." Then, according to the story fabricated by the mean-spirited Anna, Nicole remained credulous. "What? She hasn't worked for days, and she left everything for you to do alone? Let be. I'll go tell the butler and have her fired. If she can't stay here, where else can she go?" This Anna was merely feigning sympathy for others. Then she acted guilty, stopping her friend. "If she keeps pushing things onto me, I'll tell the butler. Even if I'm forced, I have to do it. After all, I've already done more." The girl believed blindly, still feeling sorry for her friend. "It's really difficult. Just let it go. It's so frustrating. What do you think? People always have their vices." So evil thoughts quickly emerged. "Miss Moira is coming today, right? I was just about to deliver that cup of tea. Just let her do it. The butler said she's not allowed to appear in front of the guests. If someone discovered her bringing tea into the drawing room, she might be fired. Even if she wasn't fired, she wouldn't be able to bear Moira's wrath and would eventually resign." The time had also come to put the plan into action. They handed a tray of tea to Julietta, saying, "Hey, go clean Miss Moira's bedroom on the first floor." She immediately sensed something was wrong, but the butler said I shouldn't appear in front of the guests. The girl came up with an excuse. "Who has time to give you such an order now? Lying blatantly anyway. Moira doesn't care. No one is coming, so you should hurry up and leave. Check if she finished the tea and then come back." "Check what? Is there something in the tea?" Mixed into that tea was an extremely expensive liquid contraceptive, but every time she would observe rather than drink it. So no matter what she drank, she would make sure to finish it. Julietta had to make sure to watch her finish the tea and clean up before leaving, which was indeed a difficult challenge for her. She glanced at it and immediately knew it was an obvious revenge plot. What would happen if I resisted a little? Julietta was curious whether these people were truly cruel or just wanted to use ugly behavior to cover up their weaknesses. There was clearly a problem, but I didn't have any proof. She stood there thinking for a moment, then was urged, "What's that? Why aren't you hurrying up and taking it away? The tea will get cold." Unable to escape, delaying was just a waste of time. She chose to obey. I'll go right away. Birth control is crucial. Well, no more abandoned babies like me." This was her resolve. After politely knocking on the door, Julietta went in. "Madam, your tea." Moira, Prince Killian's current lover, immediately recognized Julietta upon seeing her. "I'm seeing you for the first time. Who are you?" Julietta bowed respectfully. "Yes, I started working in this castle not long ago. My name is Julietta, madam." Hearing the newcomer's self-introduction, the young lady immediately made her attitude clear. "How dare you bring someone who just arrived to serve me tea? These servants are really—" Julietta knew how to behave, and she immediately apologized sincerely, saying, "Miss, please forgive me, because I was truly moved when this lady played Marshall and Lady Dantra. I was certain I absolutely wanted to serve her tea." Not just saying it, Julietta put all her emotions on her face. "Marshall? How can a maid like you watch that play?" Julietta answered honestly without hiding anything. "Because I grew up in the Irene Theater doing odd jobs in the prop room." However, she kept one secret, which was the story she heard about Moira back then. She was in the skit room at the time, and they told her the newcomer only had a pretty face and no talent whatsoever. Julietta commented, "Well, in that case, she won't hold people's affection for long." But at this moment, in order to survive, she had to fabricate some harmless lies. At that time, I secretly watched the play and became her fan. Hearing the word fan, she was truly excited, even a little shy. "Really? Even though I don't remember anything. Since you say you're my fan, I'll let you off the hook this time. But it must be on the day I live in the Emperor's bedroom in this castle that you serve me this tea, okay? You all make such a fuss about finishing this tea because it's precious and good for the body. So today I'll let you have it, a special fan. Are you happy?" Julietta had also been warned about this. Maybe I seem too easygoing, or she just wants to test me. It's obvious I haven't told her what's in this tea yet. She had already planned to start the second act immediately. "Can I really drink it?" Julietta said with a smile. "This looks like very expensive tea." "Thank you, Mississippi. I'll truthfully tell the housekeeper that I drank it. If the housekeeper gets angry, you must tell her that you were instructed by me to drink it, okay? Mora found this reaction strange. I thought it was contraceptive tea, but it seems to just be some tonic tea. If that's the case, haven't I lost out? Wait a minute. Thanks to Julietta's extremely realistic performance, the young lady changed her mind. Indeed, no. I've changed my mind. Even if I said I ordered it, when the housekeeper finds out that a lowly servant like you drank this precious tea, will she let you off the hook? Julietta continued to cooperate like a fool. Indeed, although you look a bit sillier than those rude maids, you still look better. This comment from the young lady was valuable because it meant she didn't care about appearances, and Julietta had successfully played the fool. From now on, just keep serving me tea. Meanwhile, that nasty maid went to the housekeeper. Housekeeper, Julietta disobeyed orders and brought the tea to Miss Mora's room. I told her not to appear in front of the guests. What is Nicole doing? The housekeeper seemed very angry. Until now, I'm also surprised because Julietta entered Miss Mora's room. If that lady didn't drink that tea, it would cause a big problem. The housekeeper was anxious. Now, why on earth did he take matters into his own hands? Even if he has Marquis Lacis's letter of recommendation, I must dismiss him immediately. She had just taken the tea tray from the young lady's room when the housekeeper arrived, shouting, "Julietta, who are you to just walk into Miss Mora's room like that? You haven't been working here long, and you've already disobeyed my orders. Put down the teacup and go upstairs to pack your things immediately." The housekeeper was speaking, but when she saw the empty teapot and teacup, she suddenly stopped. No way. Did that lady really drink it all? Yes, housekeeper. The short-haired maid, who had witnessed everything, couldn't help but speak. No, that's impossible. The housekeeper already knows if you want to finish that tea, it takes a long time. The short-haired girl tried to find an excuse to speak ill of Julietta, clearly afraid of being scolded. So, she either drank it or threw it away. So, the young lady really did drink it, didn't she? It turned out the housekeeper wasn't blindly trusting the senior maid. Instead, she politely asked Julietta again, "Housekeeper, I don't know how important that tea was, but I have no reason to lie." Seeing that Julietta wasn't flustered or afraid, and even spoke so clearly, the short-haired maid grew anxious, biting her nails. That young lady also said that from now on, serving her tea is my job. It's fortunate you know how to comply with her wishes. Even though the housekeeper saw that the young lady wasn't angry, you still cannot ignore the fact that you disobeyed my orders. Housekeeper, I never disobeyed your orders. I only acted according to Anna's instructions. As soon as Anna heard her name mentioned, she hurried to cover up, lying. How could I do that? It's not even my job. I've only been working in this castle for a short time. So how would I know to serve tea to that young lady? From this moment on, they officially began to compete, neither willing to give in. Seeing that things were getting out of hand, the housekeeper stopped their bickering. Enough, that's enough. But if something like this happens again, both of you will be immediately expelled from the castle. Understood. The day ended, and as usual, Julietta sighed, but still encouraged herself. Although the work is hard, today's scenery seems worth it. Today is my 3rd month in Lauda, and I can finally buy something I want for myself. That was the highlighter the young lady mentioned when I first arrived at the castle. Julietta still had many other plans. Next month I'll take a day off and maybe go on a picnic. I also don't have to deal with overdue wages every month like in Maribel, and the pay is very generous. She was walking leisurely when another maid pushed her aside, running and crying while shouting at her, "Get out of the way!" Julietta also felt a little confused. What was that just now? As soon as Julietta went inside, she heard the other maids gossiping. It seemed Nicole had gone mad, suddenly taking off her clothes in front of the prince, completely disregarding the occasion, and in front of such a noble person. Does anyone know what's wrong with that maid? Julietta had somewhat anticipated this. This was bound to happen. Anna has been harassing me for the past 3 months. Every time it's my turn, the pile of clothes is as high as a mountain, and spilling floor cleaner is a common occurrence. Only after pouring out all the dirty water would she sneer, "Be careful." The maids here don't like Julietta. They even openly badmouth her. Look at my face. I've been panicking lately. You haven't caught a disease from that ugly woman Julietta, have you? They fabricated a disease I don't have, and now it's spreading to other maids. However, even though Anna harassed me, Nicole still held the position of maid. Since she couldn't regain her own position, Anna ultimately tricked Nicole into getting herself fired. Even though it seems foolish, Julietta seems to have underestimated this girl. The situation was that when Nicole was confessing her feelings. "Ah, Your Highness, you are incredibly handsome today as well. Every time I see you, my heart races and my whole body trembles." And I'd already heard and seen it. "Nicole, that's how I've been feeling. Don't you think His Highness looks at you a little differently?" It seems I misunderstood, but anyway, my thoughts seem to be accurate. She said His Highness seems to be paying attention to me. Yes, when she walks by, the prince will definitely glance at her. Really? You think so too, right? In fact, he's always been paying attention to me. However, why doesn't His Highness express himself to me? I've been ready to be embraced by his broad arms. Anna even acted intimately. This girl, how could His Highness say such things in front of maid? You must first express your true feelings to His Highness. Just like Miss Moira has been His Highness's lover for 3 months, now that His Highness is slowly having other thoughts, she should seize this opportunity. Listening to Anna's lies, Nicole couldn't distinguish between truth and falsehood, and even excitedly fell for it. So that's why His Highness has been paying attention to me. How should I tell the prince? Tell him I love him. As soon as the opportunity arose, Anna sprang into action. Are you stupid? If the prince has even a shred of self-respect, do you think he'd accept a confession like that from a maid? You're better off stripping naked and rushing into his room. That way, even the prince wouldn't be able to pretend to ignore you, and he'd have to accept you. Julietta walked past Anna, thinking that under these circumstances, there probably wouldn't be any maids assigned to bedroom duty today. So even if it's me, she'll still call for one, right? This girl is so ugly, it's depressing just to look at her. I didn't pay attention to being harassed, but it only lasts until today. If I can be His Highness's maid again, I'll kick you out no matter what. At this time, the butler was talking to Joanna, the housekeeper. What have you done with the maids? Although His Highness said he wouldn't let it go easily, he wasn't that angry. Besides, he didn't bring any maids today, so what should we do now? Although I hurriedly arranged for another maid. The housekeeper wiped her sweat, saying the conditions for selecting a personal maid for the prince are very strict. I've tried looking, but it will take some time. What about letting Anna be a maid again? Someone who just wanders around and does nothing. There's no hope, no matter what. Housekeeper, what you said before. The butler was now reconsidering. Everyone knows she can't do anything. Julietta knew very well what they were talking about, but she still pretended to be oblivious. As soon as she pushed the door open and saw them, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It seems you two are talking. I'll come back later." His Highness won't mind the maid's appearance, right? Now only Julietta hasn't been tried. Julietta, good. Come over and say hello quickly. This is Prince Killian's personal butler, Albert. She bowed her head respectfully. I am Julietta. This is the child who came a few months ago with Marquis Rhodes's letter of recommendation. Contrary to her appearance, this child is sincere, works diligently, and is very focused. Although she doesn't look like much, we have no other choice now, so let this girl do it for now. Before being introduced to the prince for greetings, simple instructions must be given in the office. The prince? Really the prince? Or Prince Killian? What are these people talking about? While Julietta was feeling bewildered, the butler pushed her forward. What's this? Your expression when you hear good news? If you take good care of His Highness as usual and don't make any mistakes, your life will truly become comfortable. No, wait a minute, all right. I understand your feelings very well. You're ecstatic, aren't you? This is an easy job, unlike being a maid, and the pay for this job is double or even more. Her usual salary was already a lot, but now it was being doubled. To make sure she hadn't heard wrong, she even asked again, double the salary, or even more? Yes, as a personal maid to the royal family, a salary increase is only natural. Every 3 months, the Duke Bettino's mansion provides a certain salary as a personal development allowance. At the end of the year, there's also a bonus to recognize your hard work for the royal family throughout the year. When you're sick, the doctor from the main building will treat you. Compared to just the allowance, the maid's job was basically incomparable. Julietta calculated and realized she would be drowning in money. At that moment, she froze, realizing that as time went on, the reward she received and the benefits of working here kept increasing. What is this? What kind of advanced compensation system is this? Is this really a society where wearing a dress, dancing, and becoming a nobleman's lover is popular? Even if I ignore everything else, if my salary doubles, I can pay off my debts in 40 months. Not to mention, depending on their level of satisfaction, I can save up even faster to open my own shop. Thinking of this, her eyes sparkled, her expression contorted with the desire to make a living. What kind of work should I do? Your Highness, Of course, it wasn't long before she regretted her hasty agreement. Not even an hour later, Prince Killian stood before her, stark naked and utterly composed. Now you're saying this. This job, which supposedly offered double the pay, was, in reality, 10 times more draining on her spirit. This was the first time she'd been tasked with such a mortifying duty. What's that sound? Julietta thought, her face paling. What does he mean? Does this shameless prince really expect me to comment on the magnificent grandeur of his and leave me speechless? Killian stroked his chin thoughtfully. Wait, I think I've heard that strange sound somewhere before. Julietta, flustered, blurted out, I sincerely apologize. Your Highness, I have asthma, so I often find myself suddenly short of breath, which is why I occasionally make strange sounds. Please forgive me. Killian replied nonchalantly, Oh, it's all right. But why do you keep looking at the floor instead of at me? Julietta, too embarrassed to lift her head, offered an excuse. I'm sorry. I was told not to look directly at members of the royal family. Killian let out a cold laugh. Really? From now on, I permit you to look me in the eye when you speak. Julietta remembered the intensive maid training. His Highness hates being stared at, so she must be extremely careful. She couldn't help but cry silently in her heart. You old man, you tricked me. Julietta respectfully lowered her head. Your Highness, I apologize. My appearance isn't very pleasing, so it might make you uncomfortable. I was told to be careful. Julietta tried to console herself, thinking that simply doing her job well was enough. Killian glanced at Julietta and asked softly, Just do your job well? You don't want anything else? Your behavior is truly strange. But in any case, you're better than those maids who are always daydreaming and completely ignore me when I speak. Look at that pathetic, nauseating sight, wobbling around like a pig. I wonder if her ugliness is contagious. But Julietta was already lost in painful memories. She hadn't expected to hear such words from the arrogant prince who seemed to change lovers as often as he changed clothes. Killian turned to leave, not forgetting to instruct Julietta before he went. Before I return, wake her up and throw her out. Julietta responded respectfully, Yes, Your Highness. Miss, please wake up. Mora woke up groggily and asked where the prince was. Julietta respectfully replied that he had gone to bathe and his aide would be arriving shortly, so she should hurry up and get ready. Jeff! Moira frantically asked Julietta how long he had been in the bathroom. Julietta replied softly that it had been a while, but the miss hadn't gotten up yet. Upon hearing this, Jeff couldn't help but complain. No doubt he'll complain about this too. Only I get scolded, so next time be quicker. Jeff, seemingly intimidated by Julietta, immediately shut his mouth. Julietta smiled as if nothing had happened and said, All right, I'll be more careful next time. Now I think you should go in, lest you be too late. Jeff Hayes, how much longer do I have to do this job? When I heard that ugly girl was serving the prince, I nearly died of fright. What's even more ridiculous is that she hasn't even been kicked out of the Duke's mansion yet. Anna looked around, a dark thought flitting through her mind. She quietly made her way towards the prince's room. It's been a while since I've been inside the prince's bedroom. If that girl isn't here, then I can. Julietta appeared silently, asking, Who allowed you in here? Anna, startled, let out a shriek. Regaining her composure and seeing who it was, Anna finally calmed down. Julietta apologized casually. Oh, I'm sorry. It seems like there's something wrong with this oil lamp or something. Anna, both frightened and furious, cursed into her breath. You witch. Despite her inner thoughts, she plastered a smile on her face and said, Hey, I worked here not too long ago. What do you mean allowed? You're not the prince. I just took a quick look because there wasn't anyone in the room today. If something strange happens, remember, this will all be your fault. Julietta said coldly. Isn't the root of the problem her ugly and ridiculous appearance? She cursed inwardly, but her words remained civil. Fine, I'll leave. Isn't this what you wanted? I just wanted to stay a bit longer since it's been a while since I've been here. Anna muttered angrily to herself, watching the witch's haughty and overbearing attitude, climbing to a high position just to flaunt that lofty posture. But for whose benefit? Still, how can I let her get scolded? Suddenly, she saw someone approaching and called out, Miss Moira, it's been a while. Where have you been? Moira calmly replied, Yes, it has been a while. I thought you had already been kicked out of the Duke's mansion. Forever, call Julietta for me. Hearing this, Anna immediately hatched another scheme. Julietta? Oh, Julietta said she would come to attend to you today. Moira soaked in the hot water, enjoying the comfort. It's been 4 months since I became His Highness's confidant. Perhaps he won't abandon me. But he only contacts me every 2 weeks. It's unsettling. Finding it strange, Moira asked Anna, Why did Julietta Julietta suddenly say she would attend to us? Hearing the question, Anna replied innocently, I don't know either. I asked her how a maid like her could attend to a noble lady, and she said she'd be back soon, so I needn't worry. Oh, I forgot. It's a secret. Moira frowned, displeased. Julietta isn't the type to act rashly. Could it be that the prince said something? Seeing the fish take the bait, Anna smirked stealthily. Why would the prince talk to a lowly servant? I didn't expect her to be like that. But ever since she became the prince's personal maid, she's become arrogant. She's not the same as before. Recently, the number of times she stabbed you in the back is countless. Moira asked softly, Stab me in the back? Anna replied triumphantly. Of course, His Highness has come over more than once or twice, but she keeps insisting on red bed sheets, so she's been complaining. I don't understand why she's being so spiteful. Moira rose from the bath, her voice low. Where is Julietta now? Inside the carriage, Killian suddenly spoke. Listen, Albert, Jeff, if the tea gets cold and want a hot one, what would you two do? The two men who were asked couldn't help but feel a little awkward and replied, Of course, we would bring you a new cup of tea. When I return to the residence, I will have someone deliver the tea to His Highness. Hearing the satisfactory answer, Killian nodded in approval. That's right. That's how it should be. It's all right, Albert. I was just curious about people's usual reactions. Your Highness, this is already the third cup of tea. Could you please specify when you would like hot tea? I will arrange the preparation time, so we can save a significant amount of water and tea leaves. Julietta said respectfully. Some things are so unreasonable that they become absurd. Killian stared at Julietta, thinking, other servants would definitely keep these words to themselves. She has no intention of pretending to like me, nor does she intend to flatter me. Her cautious attitude intrigues me. Thinking of this, Killian couldn't help but chuckle softly. She's a strange maid, but strong and remarkably clever. He wondered what amusing expression she would show today. The two men outside the carriage couldn't help but exchange glances. Julietta, in a corner of the Duke's mansion, suddenly felt a chill, as if someone was staring at her, her skin prickling with unease. I heard that the prince and Miss Moira are coming here today. I have to hurry up and clean. Things aren't as bad as I thought. I've gotten used to this job. This stuff is a piece of cake, nothing special. Suddenly, Julietta heard a voice and turned to greet the newcomer. Oh, Miss Moira, you've arrived? You're earlier than I expected. With a loud crash, Julietta's glasses were knocked to the floor. Moira stormed forward, slapping Julietta across the face and berating her uselessness. How dare someone like you make a fool of me? How dare someone like you make a fool of me? Julietta sat there, stunned, a stinging pain blossoming on her cheek. Why am I letting myself get slapped around like this here? Julietta rallied. Please tell me what happened, and you can continue hitting me afterwards. Moira, hearing this, let out a cold laugh. You dare look me in the eye and talk back to me? Anna, standing outside the door, felt a surge of satisfaction. Serves you right, Julietta. Who told you not to listen to me? Look where it's gotten you. Suddenly, an authoritative voice boomed. What are you doing in my room? Anna shrieked in fright. Your Highness. Julietta, picking up her glasses, stood and addressed Killian. I don't know. This lady suddenly rushed in and slapped me hard across the face. Moira, putting on a weak and pitiful act, accused the arrogant maid of disrespecting the prince. She dares to disrespect your lady, which means insulting the prince. How can you let this go? Killian's face darkened, his voice cold. Explain yourself. Pitiful Moira laughed sorrowfully, saying she had been trying so hard to behave properly in front of the crown prince, yet she was still called ungrateful. I heard she doesn't even want to serve you, as you will be abandoned by the prince sooner or later. Julietta, hearing this, felt a surge of indignation on her own behalf and couldn't help but explain, I wouldn't dare presume to speculate on His Highness's thoughts. How could I say such a thing? If there really were any inappropriate thoughts, how could a lonely girl like me have any friends to confide in? Julietta explained awkwardly. I mean, like being isolated, like I'm a swan among ducks. You know, swans can't fit in with a bunch of ducks. That's basically it. The more she spoke, the more flustered she became, unsure of what she was even saying anymore. Killian looked at her as if she were an idiot, thinking, is she actually proud of not being close to anyone? She's getting weirder by the day. Anna suddenly spoke. She's lying, Your Highness. That girl told me to attend to Lady Moira, which clearly shows she looks down on her, and I accidentally told her sarcastic remarks to the lady. Seeing this, Julietta immediately said, playing the victim? I swear, when I attained this position, I didn't want to attract attention, I just wanted to do my job quietly. Even if I tried to curry favor with the prince and the lady, I would gain nothing in the end, only be scolded like this. The only one who benefits from me being kicked out is the former personal maid, Anna. Anna stammered in fright, unable to speak clearly. The more Killian watched, the more intelligent he found her to be, and he said with amusement, "Don't rush to judge right or wrong yet, as some people don't belong here anymore. Albert, take care of everything before my mood sours." Albert said, "Then, Miss Moira, please leave." Moira, startled and bewildered, was completely confused. "Wait, why, Your Highness? I was tricked by this maid. I'm innocent." Albert interrupted her, saying, "Miss Moira, your mistake lies in audaciously considering yourself the prince's woman, while Anna disobeyed the order not to appear before him. Both of you should pack your things and leave the Duke's mansion at once." 2 months later, the troublesome woman was no longer around. "Julietta, you've worked hard. The prince's personal maid was recently dismissed, so it's a bit urgent to bring her to Duke Bettino's mansion," the head butler said to Julietta. Julietta replied with a bright smile, "It's all right, head butler. I'll finish the work properly and be back soon." But inwardly, she vehemently objected, feeling extremely annoyed. She didn't want to go anywhere. The captain didn't forget to remind Julietta to obey the prince. Be sure to be careful not to get kicked out too quickly. Julietta, sitting in the carriage, silently lamented the peaceful days at the Duke's mansion. "Well, just enjoy this trip. Someday, I'll visit other countries too." Oh shoot. Gazing at the gate before her, Julietta felt a wave of inexplicable unease, a ripple of unpleasant memories stirring within her. She had seen this same crest as a child on the carriage of Marquis Ines, her father, when she went to see her mother. The father who had abandoned her. Seeing his residence now sent a tremor through her heart. Julietta slapped her cheeks lightly, trying to shake herself out of it. "Come on, snap out of these useless thoughts and move forward. I'll regret it if I give up this opportunity." At Asta Castle, the prince's residence, His Highness will soon arrive at Duke Bettino's territory. Time is short, so I'll keep it brief. I don't expect much from you, but until a new maid is found, I hope you won't be dismissed too quickly. Do you understand? After the head butler finished speaking, Julietta respectfully replied, "Yes, head butler." The magic circle at Duke Bettino's mansion was damaged in the previous battle and is still recovering, so it can't be moved all at once. The journey is long, and His Highness might be in a bad mood, so you need to be very careful and cautious in your actions. As for other matters, Jeff, the prince's aide, will personally guide you. Your most important task is to serve tea to the prince. Julietta couldn't help but feel curious about the thermos in this world. The head butler continued his instructions. Pour cold water into the pot, and it will heat up automatically. This is a glass pot. Thanks to magic, it can retain heat. You understand how precious it is, even without me saying it, right? Julietta held the glass container, amazed as the cold water instantly turned hot. It's so warm. There are many magical items like this at Duke Bettino's mansion, but I can't take any of them with me. And these things aren't for ordinary servants to use. It feels like I'm immersed in magic that doesn't belong to this era. Julietta had been feeling dizzy. Ugh, this long journey is making me nauseous, like riding an elevator up 1,000 floors and then straight down. That ugly girl has appeared. Jeff looked at Julietta as if she were a country bumpkin and asked if it was her first time seeing such an expensive magic circle. Oh dear, there should be a pretty maid standing here. Julietta really wanted to punch him, but she forced a cheerful laugh and replied, "Ah ha ha ha, yes." She agreed with both her hands and feet. "Well then, that's great, Mr. Jeff." Seeing them taking too long, the head butler called out, "Jeff, stop chatting and get in the carriage." Hearing this, Jeff replied, "Yes, dear head butler, I'm coming right away." Standing behind, Julietta made a face, fuming inwardly. That guy did that on purpose. What a jerk. On the road, Julietta hummed softly, gazing at the surrounding scenery, lost in thought. Lately, I've also experienced a taste of luxury. The sky is so beautiful. For a better fit and for ease of movement, I changed from a cotton skirt to a bouffant skirt for summer. It feels like I can handle any job. I thought I'd be stuck in that small room forever, but now I can finally appreciate the scenery outside. Oh, if I keep daydreaming like this, I'll definitely mess things up. I need to focus. Suddenly, a voice called out to her, "Hey you, the prince wants tea." Get it ready. With that, Jeff tossed a toolbox at Julietta. Julietta couldn't help but think angrily. That nasty, mean-spirited aide. Despite traveling all this way, the prince still wants to drink tea with the finest tea set, as if the one he uses every day at the palace isn't good enough. Julietta knocked on the carriage and said, "Mr. Jeff, I've prepared the tea." After waiting for a long time without a response, Julietta couldn't help but wonder, what's going on? Why aren't they opening the door? My hand is about to break. "Mr. Jeff," Julietta called out again. "The tea is getting cold now." Jeff impatiently poked his head out. "Stop rushing me. I heard you already." Unfortunately, the carriage hit a rock, and Julietta lost her grip on the cup, spilling the tea. A cup of freshly brewed hot tea, just as he poked his head out, splashed directly onto Jeff's face. Jeff was completely stunned, taking a moment to process before screaming, "Stop the carriage. What happened?" Julietta stammered, flustered. I didn't do it on purpose." The carriage jolted, "And why did you suddenly stick your head out?" "What should I do?" "Head butler, I was just about to serve tea." And then the wheel hit a rock in the road. Killian chuckled softly to himself, then said sternly, "How much longer are you planning to cause trouble here? It was just an accident. Let's get Jeff some first aid. Julietta, come inside and attend to me. While I haven't blamed you yet, don't put on that inexplicably happy face. Serve with a kind and forgiving heart. Answer me. I swear to God, I absolutely did not intend to get revenge on Jeff, really." Julietta obediently lowered her head and sat quietly in the carriage, but inside she was screaming, "Isn't this retribution for his mean and lazy behavior? Why am I being dragged into this?" Killian softly said. Julietta immediately replied, "Yes, Your Highness." She silently encouraged herself to stay calm. "It's all right. Just focus on serving him wholeheartedly. This is Julietta's job, after all." Seeing Julietta's movements, Killian misunderstood and asked angrily, frowning, "What are you doing?" Julietta asked, puzzled. "What's wrong, Your Highness? Didn't you say you wanted tea?" He asked with some confusion. "But why are you undoing your shirt?" Julietta was startled, glanced at her clothes, and understood. "Oh, don't worry, Your Highness, you misunderstood. I'm not about to strip naked and throw myself at you. I have absolutely no interest in you. I'm just tucking this precious glass container inside my coat so it doesn't break." Killian felt a sting in his heart and fell silent. He knew she was bluffing, so he quickly changed the subject. "Why didn't you explain that from the beginning? The sun is too bright. Draw the curtains." Julietta couldn't help but curse under her breath. What a moody guy, changing the subject like that. Killian, momentarily speechless, had overreacted. Perhaps she doesn't care much about appearances, so she probably wouldn't strip in front of me. I think I should keep her as my personal maid, but that would be too humiliating for her. She said she's not interested in me. What does that even mean? Killian was annoyed, his thoughts racing, his imagination twisting things, thinking Julietta looked down on him. There's nothing appealing about this prince. Thinking this, Killian felt a surge of anger, walked over to Julietta, and said, "My legs are numb from sitting for so long. Now that Jeff's not here, he can't massage them for me. So the person who made him leave has to take responsibility, right?" Julietta's eyes widened, her mouth dropping open in surprise. Inwardly, she couldn't help but feel disdainful. "You could just ask me to massage your legs. Why do you have to act exactly like that guy at the convenience store? Sir, do you need a bag? How can I take these things home without a bag?" Although reluctant, Julietta forced a smile and said, "Of course, Your Highness." Killian complained, "Don't just tickle me. Put some strength into it, more pressure." Killian squinted at Julietta, quietly observing her. She showed no respect for her master, no wavering, and no interest in his royal status or good looks. You could call these flaws, but to me, these are her interesting strengths. Killian would sometimes challenge her, saying, "I'm not asleep yet. Don't even think about stopping." "Oh, yes, Your Highness," Julietta replied through gritted teeth, though inwardly she wanted to curse his ancestors for 18 generations. "This devil, we've arrived, Your Highness." "Guests have arrived," Killian said casually. "Albert, if you can't stop those troublesome people this time, you'd better start preparing for retirement." Poor Albert said, "But Your Highness, the Count merely wishes to express his warmest welcome upon your arrival." Killian said impatiently, "Enough. Pushing his eldest daughter onto his youngest to curry favor with me, and calling it loyalty? Forget it. How's Jeff?" Albert replied. "He says he's unable to attend to you at the moment, Your Highness, as his chin and neck are scalded, so I'll attend to you in his stead." Killian said, "We have a maid. Why would we need you? Now, go prepare the bath." Albert, thinking he'd misheard, asked again, "Are you serious, Your Highness? You've never liked being touched by maids before. Killian glared. Do I look like I'm joking? Move aside, Albert. Albert, still worried, stammered. But, Julietta, starting to question the meaning of life, asked the head butler, do I really have to do this? Albert, momentarily speechless, then composed himself and barked, what are you standing around for? Go prepare His Highness's bath. Julietta felt a wave of despair. Money, you damned little thing. Julietta consoled herself, thinking, his body isn't unfamiliar to me. Nothing to be surprised about. No big deal. Just helping him bathe. That's all. I'm a princess's maid. Must be professional. Julietta glanced at the bathtub, a flicker of disappointment crossing her face. There are no bubbles in bathtubs in this world. Killian stormed into the bathroom, all patience gone. Julietta, you've been preparing the bath for an hour. What is this smell? The moment he stepped into the room, the scent hit him like a physical force. Julietta gave an awkward laugh. I accidentally spilled all the bath powder, Your Highness. The smell is too strong. Perhaps you should just wash your hands and feet today, and we could do the rest tomorrow. Killian, pinching his nose, commanded, move the tub outside. Julietta thought dejectedly, I really shouldn't expect miracles. All right, Sir Knight, I'm sorry. His Highness wants the bathtub moved to the living room. Pulling herself together, Julietta began to work like a warrior preparing for sacrifice. Killian, watching her strangely, said, it's just a bath. Why do you look like you're going to war? Julietta cried harder inside. Julietta must be more professional, more professional. Am I just an object without life? Seeing Julietta's embarrassed, flushed face, even drenched in the water unbearably hot, she still refused to take off her clothes, looking like a complete fool. Albert had brought her in, saying she was an earnest and honest person, and if he made her do something she disliked, the word hate would be written all over her face. The expression on her face right now was truly comical. Unlike the other servants, she was actually quite interesting. Suddenly, Julietta shrieked in alarm. Electricity! Your Highness, it was an accident. My hand didn't touch there on purpose. Hearing this, Killian burst out laughing. She's so amusing. Of course, that area must be washed clean as well. What are you saying? She asked. Julietta, looking bewildered, replied, yes, but then, as if not believing her own ears, asked again, completely out of it. Seeing this, Killian sighed. At this rate, they'd be bathing until tomorrow morning. All right, I'll take it from here. You go prepare dinner. Hearing this, Julietta ran out, visibly relieved. Oh my goodness, can't let His Highness go hungry. I'll go prepare it right away. Watching her flee, Killian felt a pang of regret. He should have let her bathe him a little longer, knowing how happy it would make her to leave. A knock echoed through the room. Killian said calmly, enter. The head butler, wiping sweat from his brow, entered and said, Your Highness, the Count insists on seeing you before he leaves. Killian, not even bothering to look up, said, he'll bring his daughters to be looked over. Send them away. The head butler wrung his hands, unsure how to proceed. He's already at the door. If they insist on barging in, how can I stop them? Tomorrow. Perhaps we should leave sooner. Julietta suddenly spoke up. They say the best defense is a good offense. Killian turned his head, asking her to repeat what she just said. Julietta responded in a small voice. The more Your Highness tries to stop them, the more persistent they'll be outside. There's a whole crowd waiting at the door. He's so stubborn. Isn't it because he won't give up until he gets what he wants? So, before they barge in, show yourself. I think that's the best way to avoid future trouble. The head butler, clearly displeased, scolded Julietta. How dare you speak to His Highness in such a manner? Before the head butler could finish, Killian interrupted. Not a bad idea. Albert, go out and tell him I'm too tired and have fallen asleep. If he insists on barging in, it's defiance. Throw him out. Hearing this, the head butler could only silently obey, lamenting his fate. Oh, my poor fate. As you wish, Your Highness. Killian turned to Julietta. As for you, Julietta jumped, startled at hearing her name. Present, she responded quickly. Killian gave Julietta a sly smile. Sleep with me. Julietta, unable to sleep, tossed and turned. What is this careless prince thinking? Silence filled the room. Julietta couldn't stand it any longer. She sat up and said, Your Highness, this is utterly preposterous. Protecting your safety should be the duty of the royal knights, not mine. Killian responded as if she'd told a joke. If anything happens, my trusted servant will surely protect me with her entire body. You worry too much. Take off your glasses and go to sleep. Julietta cried inwardly. Asterisk, how can I not worry? It's been months, so he probably doesn't remember anything. But if he finds out I was the one who spilled wine on him at the theater, I'm dead. Oh, dear heavens. The foam on that tongue makes it so hard to sleep. Why must I suffer because of that? Prince? Prince Killian, seemingly reading Julietta's mind, said, "Stop complaining and go to sleep. Or are you still tossing and turning because you're waiting for something else?" Hearing this, Julietta immediately pretended to be asleep, even letting out a snore. Seeing Julietta cover her ears and press the call bell, Killian thought to himself, "I must tell Albert there's no need to look for a new maid anymore. Where else could I find a maid who both loathes me and is this amusing?" Suddenly, faint rustling sounds came from outside the door. Killian looked towards the door. They're finally here. He gently nudged the sleeping figure. "Julietta, wake up." Julietta mumbled in her sleep. Baldy, Killian, feeling insulted, muttered angrily under his breath. What kind of dream is she having that she won't even wake up when her master calls? Suddenly, a girl appeared as if from nowhere, calling Killian's name seductively. Prince Killian, already irritated, was further annoyed by the sight of these women. A scream echoed through the room, jolting Julietta awake. "What was that sound?" Killian commanded. "Lights." "Julietta, are you daydreaming again? Did His Highness really make that girl scream and push her to the floor?" Killian, frustrated by Julietta's sluggishness, snapped, "Get a grip and look carefully. Deal with that intruder." Julietta went over and shook the woman lying unconscious on the floor. "Hey, miss, wake up. You can't just lie here pretending to be unconscious." Seeing Killian's darkening expression, Julietta panicked. "Oh no, His Highness is about to explode. Hey, wake up, miss. Please open your eyes. If you don't wake up, you'll surely die, and I'll die with you." The woman slowly regained consciousness, asking dazedly, "Where am I?" Seeing Killian, she lunged towards him. "I came here to see you. Please hold me." Julietta stared, jaw agape, listening to the girl's words. How could she be so bold? Doesn't she see his expression? Killian, frowning impatiently, looked at Julietta. "What are you standing around for? Get her out of here, and then call Albert." Julietta approached the woman and said softly, "Please, don't be like this. She doesn't understand propriety." The woman looked down at Julietta with contempt and raised her hand to strike her. "I'm speaking to His Highness, who allowed you to interrupt." But Julietta instinctively dodged the incoming slap, leaving both of them momentarily stunned, staring at each other. The woman let out a cold laugh. How dare you? You actually dodged." Julietta stammered, frightened. I dodged instinctively." Julietta thought to herself, in high society, a few slaps are nothing. As long as I can survive this, get through today safely. The woman's hand rose again, then stopped. She gasped in surprise, uttering a single word, "The dead." "Ha," Killian said, his voice laced with annoyance. "Stop acting like a fool." "Julietta, who are you?" Julietta replied, puzzled. "I am Prince Killian's personal maid." Killian said with satisfaction, "This woman not only snuck into my bedroom, but she also tried to harm the prince's attendant. I think she must be tired of living." The woman trembled, stammering, "Your Highness, that..." Killian spoke coldly, clearly uninterested in her excuses. "Is there anyone outside?" The head butler, roused from sleep, hurriedly dressed and rushed to the bedchamber. "Your Highness, what happened?" Killian asked coldly. "Didn't you say that no other guests would be allowed to enter while I'm staying at this inn? Then how did she get in? Did she really manage to sneak past the knights and climb over the wall in that cumbersome gown? Or does she possess some assassin-like skills, allowing her to blend in?" The head butler hastily explained. "Your Highness, please forgive me. Count Badon requested an audience with you early this morning." Killian said coldly, "Albert, haven't I told you that defying orders is tantamount to treason?" In the middle of the night, a stranger suddenly appears in the prince's room, clearly having snuck in, openly defying orders. "This is clearly an attempt to assassinate me. This is treason. Immediately arrest all strangers, except for our own people." Count Badon is no exception. Count Badon, terrified, defended himself. "Your Highness." "Treason? You misunderstand. My foolish daughter was merely acting rashly out of her admiration for you. Your Highness, please be magnanimous and forgive her." Killian said indifferently. Count Badon, have I ever entertained you before? The Count, his face pale, asked why. Killian asked directly. Haven't you been weighing the pros and cons between me and Crown Prince Francis? Why? If we accept her today, wouldn't that mean you're betraying Francis? Even if the Emperor supports me, I have no interest in the throne. Francis is different. He's constantly expanding his power. So you're hesitant, aren't you? The Count, frightened, hurriedly defended himself. Your Highness, this is just a misunderstanding. I haven't done anything. Killian slammed his knife on the table in anger. In a low voice, he said, "How foolish. Even though I warned you not to enter this place, you still insisted on sneaking in, and even dared to hit my closest maid." Hearing this, everyone in the room looked at Julietta, thinking, judging by her expression, she must have done something truly remarkable for His Highness to favor her so much. The Count, feeling indignant, said, "Your Highness, are you truly angry just because of a lowly maid? My daughter must have had a reason to hit her. Otherwise, that maid is of too low a status to even appear before my daughter." Killian coldly repeated, "You dare insult my servant." The head butler wiped away the cold sweat, thinking, this girl is truly remarkable to have captivated His Highness so. Killian asked the Count, "Are you saying that a maid serving the royal family is lowly?" Seeing Killian's anger, the head butler quickly interjected, "Your Highness, it's getting late. Can we resolve this matter tomorrow morning? We need to depart early, and the coachman and attendants might not be well rested yet." Killian sighed and said, "Fine, but before we postpone this until tomorrow, apologize to my personal maid." The Count couldn't believe his ears. "What did you say? Your Highness, you want us to apologize to a servant like her?" Killian asked calmly, "A lowly maid who, in his eyes, could be abused simply because of his higher status? He's more arrogant than a prince of this kingdom. If he continues like this, I'll have to assume he wants to usurp my position." "Oh no, that would be treason, wouldn't it, Albert?" Albert nodded. "Indeed, even though your Highness has graciously pardoned him, Count Badon doesn't seem to appreciate it." Having no other choice, the father and daughter reluctantly apologized. I am truly sorry. Please forgive me." For the first time, Julietta felt a sense of being protected, a warmth blooming in her chest. "Fine, I'll forgive that stubborn prince. At least now, I'm being treated somewhat like a human being. At least I won't be slapped anymore. All right, I'm slightly grateful." Outside the mansion, in a carriage, a man stroked his beard thoughtfully, his voice low. "That girl is Julietta." The next morning, in the carriage, Killian called for Julietta to make tea, but she was dozing and didn't hear him. Killian was annoyed. The prince is sitting right here, and she dares to fall asleep? Well, so much happened yesterday. She probably didn't sleep well. There's no other way. Waking her up seems a bit harsh. I'll just quietly take out that hideous pouch. Killian walked over to Julietta and untied the ribbon on her shirt. Where did she hide that glass jar? Julietta's eyes snapped open. Both of them froze, staring at each other. Julietta quickly scrambled back, shielding herself and looking at Killian warily. What are you doing?" Killian felt both wronged and frustrated. "I wasn't doing anything. I just wanted tea. So I was looking for the magic thermos. I called her, but she ignored me, and now she dares to yell at me? Is she looking for trouble?" Seeing Killian's anger, Julietta quickly explained, "And no, that's not what I meant. I just opened my eyes and saw you trying to undress me, so I was a little startled. Next time, just wake me up by gently shaking me." Killian paused, glancing at Julietta. Julietta muttered under her breath, "Acting like a demon who'll die if he doesn't get his tea." Killian snapped back to attention. "What did you just say?" Julietta gave an awkward laugh. Did I say something? Ha ha. Tired and frustrated, Julietta grumbled to herself, the long journey wearing her down. Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed her luggage. A man with a bright smile and a friendly demeanor said, "Hello, this looks heavy. Let me help you with that. My name is Gaines. Don't mention it." Julietta glanced at him and replied indifferently, "Oh, no need. It's not heavy." Gaines smiled. "I just wanted to help. What's your name?" Julietta replied, "Julietta Salmon." Gaines sized Julietta up, figuring she must be the prince's personal maid. Hideously ugly, probably easy to fool. Though, it would be easier if she were a bit prettier. Gaines feigned friendliness as he continued to chat with Julietta. "By the way, Julietta, your eyes are really beautiful. It's a shame they're hidden behind those thick glasses. Julietta inwardly groaned. What? People can't see my eyes because of my glasses? Actually, I could only see the color of your eyes at first, but looking closer, they're much prettier than I imagined. I'm complimenting you. I've never seen anyone with such small, ugly eyes since I was born. But looking closely, there's a certain charm. Julietta was speechless at his rambling. If this idiot wants to compliment someone, he should at least be sincere. The butler entered the room and said softly, Diane, the maid's nightgown you requested is ready. Huh? Why so suddenly? Killian said, last night, I asked her why she was sleeping in her work clothes, and she said she'd never owned a nightgown. A maid with a generous master like me will probably be moved to tears. The head butler thought to himself, His Highness never cared about the servants before. He's only worried about Julietta. Killian asked hesitantly, but how much longer must my maid keep me waiting? The head butler replied with a smile, perhaps it's because we have so much luggage. Allow me to attend to you in her stead. Killian rose from his chair. No, I'll go get her myself. The luggage is the same as usual. Why is she so slow? Killian stopped abruptly, his gaze falling on Julietta and Gaines in conversation. His voice turned icy. What are you doing? Julietta, startled, turned and addressed Killian softly. Your Highness. Killian strode towards her, anger radiating from him, making me wait this long for my own maid, to the point I have to come find her myself. Julietta, upon hearing this, quickly offered a sincere apology. Your Highness, I'll bring the luggage up right away. Killian turned to Gaines. And you? Gaines offered an awkward smile. Your Highness, my apologies. I haven't had the chance to introduce myself. I'm one of the escort knights. Killian, uninterested in Gaines's identity, said coldly, if any more strangers sneak into my room tonight, I'll send you back to the royal palace. Gaines hesitated. Yes, but your Highness said yesterday that you had matters to consider, so you ordered me not to stay in the next room. Killian didn't reply, simply glaring at Gaines with fury. Gaines reluctantly responded, yes. Julietta, holding the nightgown, asked with confusion, so, what is this? Killian, sipping his tea casually, replied, tonight, you'll sleep in this. From now on, this will be a display of your absolute loyalty to the prince. You should feel fortunate to have such a noble master as myself. Are you touched? Good. It's still early, but go try it on. Julietta forced a laugh. Ha ha! Thank you so much. Inwardly, she screamed, who would like this thing? Maybe Julietta from a parallel universe would. Anyway, that high and mighty prince seems to enjoy teasing me. Ugh, I can't wear a petticoat under this. Julietta muttered to herself in frustration. Do I have to wear that thick cotton dress again? Your Highness, I've changed. Killian looked at Julietta and smiled. Much better. You look much more relaxed now. But why does your stomach suddenly look bigger than before? Julietta answered evasively. I usually wear a corset, so I look smaller. She thought, of course, using a pannier and cotton padding is different. Hearing this, Killian immediately dismissed his suspicion. Really? I don't understand why she'd do something so complicated. Never mind. I want to see your reaction, but those glasses are too thick. I can't see anything. When we get to Rick Allen, I'll have to ask the dwarf jeweler to make another pair so I can finally see her face. Killian frowned, recalling Julietta talking to Gaines. Looking closely at Julietta, don't be fooled by appearances. Some people do find her attractive, so don't overthink it. As her master, I have to protect this naive maid. After the Austrian jewelry store went bankrupt, it'll be very difficult to build a brand as successful as it once was. If Diane intends to invest in this field, you should consider customer preferences and a level of attractiveness to compete with other jewelry stores. Killian said, all right, stop the carriage. Call Albert before we arrive in Rick Allen. Albert, we need to stop by the town where the Empire's largest jeweler is located. Although Adam had some concerns about investing in a chain of jewelry stores, his intuition told him it was a lucrative opportunity, so he had to find a way. Julietta sat listening to Killian discuss business, thinking to herself, that's right, he works so hard, he must be under a lot of stress. No wonder he has such a bad temper. It's unbelievable. A prince, born with everything, never having to worry about food, clothing, or shelter, is now working so hard to build his own finances. That's right, he's probably only so difficult because of his pride. So, we need patience, a lot of patience. Julietta asked softly, "Your Highness, would you like some tea?" Killian looked at Julietta suspiciously, as if questioning what scheme she was concocting. Julietta was speechless, thinking he's hopeless. She hadn't felt a shred of sympathy for this man. "I just thought it was time for tea, but if you don't want any, it's fine," she replied curtly. Killian said smugly, "Of course I want some. Give me a cup. And it's also time for a massage." Julietta thought angrily, "This is why I can't be bothered with these perplexing thinkers." The carriage suddenly hit a rock, jolting violently. Julietta was thrown forward, causing a vase to tumble from its place. She gasped, "Oh no, even if I sold myself, I couldn't afford to replace that." Seeing Julietta reach for the falling vase, Killian snapped, You idiot! It's dangerous. Don't you realize the wheel is broken? The whole carriage is tilting." Julietta thought in confusion. What in the world is going on? "Your Highness, please, could you let go of me?" Julietta hiccuped anxiously. "I'm doomed." My tongue frothing. The prince's hand rested on her padded waist. Julietta's mind raced in panic. "This is bad. My secret is out." Hearing his words, her face paled further. Has he already figured it out? How can I explain this? But what can I say now? Seeing her silence, Killian's anger intensified. He gritted his teeth and demanded, You've been lying to me this whole time, haven't you? These glasses are fake too, aren't they?" He reached for her spectacles. Outside, people rushed to help, shouting, "Hurry, lift the carriage." Inside, Killian blocked her against the carriage door. Hearing the commotion, the head butler's worry escalated. "Oh no, Your Highness, are you all right?" I'll open the door right away." Killian glared out. "Don't open it. Just fix it and keep moving. We'll discuss this incident later." As he spoke, his hand unconsciously tightened on her arm. Feeling him squeeze as if checking her arm, Julietta pushed him away. "Your Highness!" Killian continued to glare at her coldly. "A pannier around your waist, cotton padding on your shoulders and arms. Quite the elaborate preparation." Humiliated by his mocking words, Julietta's face burned. "I'm doomed either way. Why should I be afraid of this rude, arrogant man?" After a moment, Killian sat down, arms resting on his legs. "Who sent you?" he asked. Hearing this, she clenched her fists, steeling herself. "Don't be afraid. Julietta, I haven't done anything wrong. Just act natural, and everything will be fine." Julietta sat down, hands clasped in her still trembling lap. "No one sent me. I just needed a place to stay. I found work here. It was through a friend." The letter of recommendation was written by Marquis Rhodius. "If you don't believe me, Your Highness can ask him directly." He remained silent, his expression unreadable. Her hands trembled harder. No matter how she looked at it, she looked like a spy. Suddenly, Killian spoke. "Then explain why you're dressed so strangely." Julietta answered immediately. I became an orphan at 5, and then I was sent to the theater where I grew up. For a helpless orphan, the theater is a very dangerous place. I dressed like this just to protect myself. Also, I didn't know what my first assignment would be, so I was always anxious and kept up this disguise. She prayed silently. "Please don't remember what happened at the theater that time." Killian considered her answer for a moment. "Sometimes I think she's quite endearing, though. I suppose everyone would think so. Among the maids, suddenly there appears a small, armor-clad child." He paused, then stared at her intently. Then he said, "All right, you have my permission to keep up your disguise." Hearing this, she blurted out, Julietta pointed at herself, stammering, But, Your Highness, now that you know the truth, I don't need to dress like this anymore." He said, No need to remove your disguise, though I don't know what you're hiding under that nightgown. However, you can take them off now and get a good night's sleep." Julietta was even more shocked at his words, her inner thoughts screaming, "It's over. It's all resolved." Outside, everything had returned to normal. Killian said, "I'm such a generous master." By evening, they had all arrived at the mansion. The head butler walked in wearily, thinking, because of the broken carriage wheel and the change in itinerary, we didn't arrive at the mansion until midnight. His Highness is definitely going to be furious. He hadn't even entered the mansion proper. Walking over, he saw Killian and asked, "Your Highness, did you call for me?" Killian turned around and asked, "Who said I called for you?" The head butler was startled. What? Your Highness, weren't you standing here waiting for me? Just taking a stroll? Then someone approached. He called out, Julietta. The head butler exclaimed, huh? Then, watching her carry her suitcase, Killian said, don't keep me waiting too long like last time. Get rid of all that unnecessary baggage and hurry upstairs. She replied, yes, Your Highness. After she left, Killian pondered for a moment, a sly smile spreading across his face. He felt quite pleased. I have to get her upstairs before those fellows try to seduce her. It's truly rare to find such a diligent and meticulous maid. If some playboy were to snatch her away, that would be incredibly annoying. The head butler was taken aback by the expression on Killian's face. He thought, His Highness Killian, why does he look so happy? In a quiet bedroom, Killian changed his clothes, muttering, I'm exhausted. Tomorrow, I need to sleep earlier. Before he could finish his sentence, Julietta walked in and asked, Your Highness, are you sleepy? Killian froze, his eyes fixed on her. She was wearing a pale, pink dress, the gentle breeze rustling the fabric, adding to her grace. Seeing his silence, she continued, Well, I apologize. This nightgown, it was measured when I was wearing my stage costume. Now, it doesn't fit quite right. Suddenly, the head butler came over, knocked on the door, and called out, Your Highness, are you asleep? Count Adam of Rick Allen is here to see you. Julietta reached for the door, saying, I'll just step outside. Before she could open it, he pushed the door open and shouted, Where are you going? Julietta. She stumbled, still not understanding what he had done. With a serious expression, he pointed directly at her. From now on, you're only permitted to wear that outfit in my bedroom. Understand? Julietta. Julietta was still confused. Huh? Yes. Killian continued. Either I go out, or you change your clothes before going out. If anyone sees you wearing that outfit outside, I won't let them get away with it. After hearing his words, she thought, Do I really look that bad? Outside, the head butler knocked again. Hearing the commotion inside, he wondered, what was that sound? Worried, the head butler continued to knock. Your Highness, please forgive the intrusion. Before he could finish, Killian opened the door slightly, his voice laced with irritation. I'll be out shortly. Wait, once I'm ready, go to the drawing room and sit. Adam, there's no rush to see me. Adam chuckled. I heard you could inspect a mineral deposit and then open a jewelry store. Anyway, I was just about to. Hearing this, Killian abruptly turned his head back towards the room. Seeing the head butler raise his hand to open the door, Killian yelled, Wait! He rushed over and blocked the door, startling the head butler, who cried out, Your Highness. The head butler asked, Your Highness, what is going on? But Killian didn't answer. Instead, he countered, Do you keep trying to enter my bedroom? The head butler immediately replied, I have to have the maid prepare tea for the guest. His Highness is already awake, but the maid is still asleep. That won't do, Killian frowned. She's not asleep. She's up. She's changing her clothes. Go make it yourself, the head butler asked. Your Highness, you just now, why wouldn't you let me in? Killian snapped. I was naked. Someone barged into the room. Do you think that's amusing? Adam sat quietly, listening. The head butler exclaimed, Your Highness, I've served you since you were in diapers. When have I ever hesitated to enter your room, regardless of what you were wearing? And now, suddenly, because there's a woman in your room, I can't come in. Hearing this, Killian, unsure of what the butler was implying, retorted, Who do you think I am? Have I ever touched any of the maids before? The head butler replied, Yes, I understand. On the contrary, it's always the maids who try to get close to your Highness. That's why you dislike them so much, right? But recently, your Highness's behavior has been very strange. Someone like your Highness actually constantly shielding a servant. This isn't that strange. Even if it's to protect your Highness today, I must open this door, even if it costs me my head. I won't hesitate. With that, the head butler lunged for the door. Stop, Albert. I said don't open it. But the door had already begun to open. The two struggled against each other, and as the door swung open, they both stared, uttering, Huh. Julietta appeared, looking disheveled, as if she had just crawled out of a hole. Your Highness. Head butler, what's going on? The head butler, taking in the scene, noticed the woman he'd glimpsed earlier, looking as if she'd just woken up, her hair a mess, her clothes rumpled, a picture of pathetic disarray, her face even glistening with oil. Seeing this, he bowed his head. Please forgive me, Your Highness. I'm old and muddled, Killian, completely bewildered, asked angrily. What's with this reaction? Why are you suddenly apologizing? Killian turned to Julietta. Anyway, she raised a hand, gesturing that everything was all right. It's fine now. Before Killian could finish his sentence, his eyes were drawn to the buttons on her shirt, strained and nearly bursting. He was so stunned he couldn't speak. After a few seconds, he shoved Julietta back into the room, roaring, Do you think you can go anywhere looking like that? Get back in there now. Albert took out a handkerchief and wiped his tears. Just how ugly must she be for him to be so eager to shoo her away? Indeed, Adam, who had been observing from behind, thought to himself, why does His Highness care so much about a servant's clothes? A moment later, Killian emerged from the room. Count, it's getting late. You could go back now. I have things to do tomorrow. We can discuss other matters tomorrow morning. Adam smiled, thinking it's only been an hour, and he wants to send me away. Then he said, Aren't you curious? Why I rushed here as soon as I received Your Highness's letter yesterday. Marquis and Marchioness Anais arrived. Rick Allen, at last winter's ball, Your Highness invited them to the Duchy of Bertino, correct? Killian frowned. I did. Adam replied, Yes, sir. After April, you will invite them to the Duchy of Bertino for a few months to discuss business. You seem to have forgotten about it. Still confused, Killian responded. Are you talking about Miss Anna Easter, Duke Dudley's niece? I couldn't have said that, Adam sighed. I heard that because Your Highness invited them. They have already unpacked their luggage at Colin Castle. What else can I say? Even if that young lady is merely infatuated with Your Highness. I didn't expect the Marquis would come to visit. After listening, Killian crossed his arms, his expression serious. Investigate Marquis Anais's relationship with his father-in-law, Duke Giuliani. See if it's still as strained as it used to be in preparation for this summer's hunting event. Duke Martin, Duke Cialini arrived at Colin Castle. Although we don't know those two men's intentions, but they traveled so far to Bertino, surely not for that girl. Exhausted, Adam continued. Duke Martin just resolved the dispute with his father. He'll definitely come here, right? Killian had already turned away. Yvette, I've heard everything important. You can go back now. I have things to do tomorrow. So, I need to rest early. Adam, observing this, smiled continuously, thinking this secretive behavior clearly indicates he's hiding something suspicious. With this thought, he replied, Yes, Your Highness, you've been writing all day. I'm also exhausted. I request permission to retire. The next morning, in the carriage, Albert's loud voice rang out. She dares to sit next to His Highness. Julietta, startled, stammered, Esri. Julietta started to move away, but Killian caught her hand, stopping her. You sitting in the carriage. How can you take orders and serve? Just sit here. At this moment, Adam spoke, having a maid sit next to Your Highness. That's not quite appropriate. Let her sit over here. He nudged Julietta. Sit. Killian, seeing this, said, Don't expect my maid to serve you. If you won't want to be served, then bring your own maid. Adam, smiling continuously, replied, Too bad. My servant went out early this morning on business. This afternoon, I still have to go to B Street. Julietta, biting her lip, dared not make a sound, thinking, I told you so. Why are you two squeezing me in the middle? Let me out. After a struggle, everything remained the same. Adam turned to her and said, Speaking of all this, I am Festi. Pour me some water. Julietta took a bottle of water from the luggage and said, Here. Adam exclaimed, She actually wants me to drink straight from the bottle. Then it turned to Killian and asked, Your Highness, where did you find such an unmanly maid? Hearing this, Julietta nervously asked, So, I should offer to, right? Just then, Killian spoke, Count on the road. It's inevitable to encounter some situations. Drinking bottled water for a day won't kill you. Adam widened his eyes in surprise, thinking this arrogant noble. His Highness, when did he become so magnanimous? Even on a long journey, he would use ceramic cups or silver tableware. The water is also transported from the palace by 2 carriages. The carriage behind His Highness's carriage is for serving others. This inevitable situation here is, with his thought, he subconsciously glanced at her, then thought further. Is this ugly maid the reason for His Highness's concern for her? Thinking this, Adam said, Then I'll continue my earlier report. During this summer's hunting competition, remember someone riding a horse and shooting arrows? He said, perhaps Crown Prince Francis will also participate. Hearing this, Killian was startled and asked that guy is also going to Bertino. No way, right? Adam replied, that's right, because of Marchioness Easter. Even if he doesn't want to, he will come. He might shift his target from Princess Haint to this person. Hearing this, Killian asked, Are there any other changes? Adam replied, yes. This is the second reason I came to see you. According to Marquis Rhodes, Haint is pregnant, but not many people know yet. You need to verify this to know if it's true. This wasn't difficult. Crown Prince Moira's former lover became Duke Haint's concubine. She sat quietly, not understanding anything, thinking about other things. This morning's events felt like a play, didn't it? After listening to Adam's words, Killian asked who. Adam smiled and said, Your Highness, you slept with someone. You should at least remember her name, right? If I remember correctly, his recent lover. Killian calmly looked out the window and said, I'd rather I remember at this moment. Julietta turned around and said, exactly 2 months ago. Adam looked at her and asked, How do you know? She suddenly realized and whispered, Oh no, I spoke out of turn. Julietta quickly explained that I was a maid in the bedroom at the Bertino Manor. I served her. Adam responded, Oh, so you were the one who always stood in His Highness's room? That job isn't too hard, Julietta continued. Besides escorting the ladies out of the room, there wasn't much trouble. His Highness is very energetic. It lasted so long my legs were weak. Adam laughed until tears came out and asked, He really is that good? She replied, Oh, don't say it like that. It was my first time standing and working for so long. There were a few days when it happened 3 or 4 times, all the way until morning. Completely different from what? Oh, hearing this, Killian was startled and asked, Different from what you know? How do you know these things? Adam calmly replied, Why are you asking this, Your Highness? This is just experience. Julietta thought, I already knew these things in my past life, so I can see His Highness clearly. Even if I don't have real-life experience, indirect experience is still experience. It can't be denied. At times like these, we just need to show a confident smile. Then she just smiled silently. Killian was even more shocked, as if struck by lightning. Adam, holding the report, thought, although we've been friends since childhood, this is the first time I've seen this expression on his face. He's always been a playboy who enjoys playing with emotions. Your Highness, are you serious? Could it be that my thoughts are correct? His expression is both joyful and sorrowful, just because of a servant's words. Isn't this like someone in love? After sitting for a while in the carriage, we arrived at the shop. Everyone walked in. The owner smiled and greeted us, saying, Welcome, gentlemen. What do you need? Julietta looked around and thought, what kind of shop is this? He clearly said he was going to a jewelry store. It looks like a living room, but this is definitely not a tea house. I saw him casually walk into the house. She worriedly thought, now, besides this, I'm completely losing my mind. What does heartfelt praise mean? A maid dares to comment on her master's private life. When should I apologize? Well, I just hope he doesn't fire me. My salary. Killian turned and looked at her with her head lowered, almost touching the floor, and said, Do you have something to say? If so, don't be shy. Speak. Julietta approached, hesitantly bowed, and said, Your Highness, I made a very foolish mistake just now. From now on, I will absolutely be more careful with my words. I swear. Please forgive me. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head and remained silent. A few seconds later, Killian said, She didn't say anything wrong in front of me, and Count Adam. So there's no need to ask for forgiveness. But remember to be careful with your wording in front of others. After waiting for a while, the shopkeeper took out an exquisite box and said, "Thank you for waiting. This is our shop's creation." Julietta leaned forward and looked at the box, thinking, "Oh, this jewelry box looks just like the one I saw at the theater." She recalled the past. All the jewelry used as props in the theater were old, but they looked very beautiful when paired with the gorgeous costumes. Killian looked down at the jewelry box for a moment and said, "You come over here and sit." "And maid, I know more about this than we do. After all, a woman's aesthetic sense is more reliable." Hearing this, the shopkeeper panicked and called out, Dan, Nia." At this moment, Adam stopped him and said, "Oh, don't worry. Let's open it and see what's inside." Opening the box, it radiated light. She exclaimed, "Wow." She looked at the gems and murmured, So beautiful. If these were attached to clothes." She was about to touch when a shopkeeper gestured to her. She thought, "Oops, my mouth is faster than my brain again." Then Julietta looked away from the gems and glanced around, thinking, "But this place doesn't look like a jewelry store at all. No matter how I look at it, I can't tell what kind of shop this is, even with magic or divine power. Is it because this era is behind modern times?" Killian asked the Count, "What's your attitude towards my maid?" Adam couldn't be bothered to explain. He raised his hand to stop him and said with a smile, "Do you have any amethyst here?" The shopkeeper replied, "Not many customers so we don't have it in stock. I'm sure, the Bertino Duchy is the largest producer of quartz. So, compared to other gems, its supply is greater." He thought, After a while, he picked up a gemstone and said, "Although it's not as good as dwarven craftsmanship, it's quite exquisite. Please add this person to the Bertino craftsman roster." Adam said seriously, "Duke Bertino, even though you are the Empire's largest amethyst producer, jewelry stores have recently become saturated. We should develop a niche market for amethysts." He pondered, arms crossed. Seeing Adam put his hand behind his head, he turned and asked Julietta, "Julietta, what do you think? Compared to Austin's jewelry store, this shop isn't much different, right?" Hearing this, Julietta clenched her fingers, thinking, "Oh, I have no idea what Austin's jewelry store is like, so I should say I don't know anything." He saw her not answering and turned back, adding, "The prince said you don't have to hide your thoughts. Just tell the truth. Don't worry. Tell us what you think." Hearing this, she said, "These jewels look really beautiful, but there are some things that puzzle me." Adam asked, "Puzzle you?" Julietta began, "Yes. This shop deliberately hides what they have and only brings it out when a customer asks. If only customers looking for new jewelry come, is this really a shop? Jewelry isn't a daily necessity, but a luxury, so it needs a more comprehensive strategy. Shouldn't it make people want to buy jewelry, even if they don't need it?" After listening, Adam said, "That's certainly a thought I hadn't considered. Using old methods to attract customers does have its limitations." He asked, "How did you come up with that?" Looking at the jewelry tray on the table, she said, "Seeing these beautiful gems hidden away feels like such a waste, because people usually think that hidden beauty is usually worthless." Then Killian continued to think. She looked at him and thought, thinking back, he's different from others. The prince never mentions his appearance and has never mistreated or looked down on her. Even though he can be difficult or get angry for no reason, his moods are unpredictable. He's still the only one here who doesn't judge by appearances. Finishing her thought, Killian said, "Just looking at the raw stones, indeed, few people can truly see their real value." Then he asked, "So, how should the merchandise be displayed?" She replied, "I think to let customers see what's inside, I would put a display case in a glass cabinet and place it at the front of the store. That way, even if people are just passing by, they'll find it attractive. Like, wow, I really want to buy that. The initial cost might be high, but I guarantee it will be a very profitable investment. Luxury jewelry is a high-end product, so the interior must first be decorated elegantly and gorgeously. Even the staff must be hospitable, greeting customers with a polite and professional attitude, ensuring that our distinguished guests receive the most outstanding reception in the world. I want to create a shop that will one day be the dream of many, a dream where people will go there to shop one day." Thinking of her past life, that was my dream too, to help everyone achieve their dreams. Killian, after listening, was surprised and thought, look at this maid, not special at all, but her face when she talks about dreams suddenly radiates, full of vitality, more beautiful than the most beautiful singer. Then, crossing his arms, he nodded as if agreeing with the idea. All right, sounds good. We'll have a meeting as soon as we arrive at Rick Allen. Julietta, hearing this, said, then I'll excuse myself. She left the room, leaving only the two of them. Adam asked, what are you thinking? Killian asked, what's wrong? Adam said, if you like that ugly maid, keep her. But I hope you won't reveal to the outside world that the prince is someone who will inherit the throne. If rumors spread that you're interested in a maid with such looks, people will laugh at you, and she'll become your Achilles heel. Others will gossip about your taste, and it'll definitely cause a lot of trouble. After listening, Killian laughed, exhaled loudly, and said, do you really think I'd have feelings for a servant? You didn't even ask about my feelings. Ew, Adam replied. Are you sure? If it's just my misunderstanding, then fine. That girl is shrewd in business, but she isn't really necessary for you. Your Highness keeping a maid with such looks will undoubtedly affect your reputation. When we get to Rick Allen, I'll find you another maid. Killian interrupted. I don't judge people by their appearance. She works meticulously and never harbors unnecessary thoughts. I won't agree to fire a maid just because she isn't pretty. Hearing this, Adam just sighed and said, if you say so, I won't argue about the maid anymore, but sincerely advise you to pull Lady Annis to your side. Adam said seriously, I sincerely suggest you must win over Lady Annis. Killian turned his head and asked, why should I do that? To check Francis. Adam explained, Marquis Annis has chosen a neutral stance. If his daughter marries Prince Francis, he'll have to support that side. So you need to be a step ahead of Prince Francis. Killian, rubbing his temples, said, Adam, I haven't decided whether I want to be emperor yet. Rick Allen, the capital of the Bertino Duchy. Someone reported that Grand Duke Killian had arrived. Oswald bowed in greeting, winked with a smile, and said, welcome back to Colin Castle, Your Highness. It's been a while. You become even more beautiful. Killian said, still as noisy as ever. Oswald touched his face and said with a slightly reproachful tone, noisy? What's noisy? Do you know how hard I worked to achieve this beautiful elegance? Your Highness has been sculpted beautifully since birth, so you probably wouldn't understand. Oh, right? Who's standing next to you? This question startled Julietta. She quickly lowered her head and said, oh, hello. I'm Julietta, currently serving as His Highness's temporary maid, replacing Jeff due to some issues. Oswald approached her and said, you don't have to be so nervous, temporary maid. You seem quite interesting. He asked jokingly, so, can I hire her after Jeff returns? Adam tried to stop him, saying, but before Adam could speak, Killian walked over angrily and said, Marquis, is this the time to flirt with my maid? I heard you were busy entertaining guests at the castle, but why do you look so relaxed? Hearing this, Oswald crossed his arms and said, well, since you mentioned it, Your Highness, you must punish Adam. Then Oswald pointed at Adam and accused, usually, he's already incredibly busy, but as soon as he heard Prince Francis was coming, he turned and left without a word. Honestly, Adam coughed a few times and explained, it's not like that. As soon as I heard the news, I immediately ran to tell Your Highness. Marquis and Lady Annis arrived, so I've been very busy. Seeing everyone say this, Julietta realized, I was too relaxed. I almost forgot these people are of a status I can't approach. Then she reminded herself, don't make the mistake of forgetting your place just because they're kind to you. This place isn't suitable for me, a servant, but for a young marquis raised with love and care. Suddenly, mid-sentence, Killian turned to the butler and said, oh, right, Albert. Take Julietta to the room next to mine and prepare a meal for her. We'll eat together. We should continue our discussion and prepare a simple meal. Albert thought to himself, Your Highness, why are you so concerned about that maid? What about me? Oswald said jokingly. It seems His Highness cares a great deal for that servant. It appears she's earned your trust. I should treat her well, too. Killian replied, my maid will feel pressured by your attention. Oswald continued, oh, how could she dislike the attention of a handsome man like me? Julietta looked at Oswald, surprised and confused, thinking, who is this man? He doesn't fit this rigid and austere atmosphere at all. Then they all left. Oswald, noticing her, turned and gestured, goodbye. Julietta thought shyly, it's all right if it doesn't work out. This is fine too. I don't know why, but I feel like he's saying this. That's right. If someone as unique as him can become the prince's confidant, why can't I? I must be more confident. Julietta walked down the hallway, thinking, Where did the butler say the kitchen was? When she arrived at the kitchen, she didn't see anyone. She muttered, "Oh." Then she thought, "It seems if it's not mealtime, there might not be anyone here. So, there's no choice but to come back later." Suddenly, a voice called out, "Hey, miss." She turned around and saw the head housekeeper of the castle, her head resting on her hand, asking, "I've never seen you before. What are you doing here?" Julietta was about to answer, but before she could, she heard people whispering, "Oh my God, look at her. How can a maid be so ugly?" The head housekeeper asked, "How can someone so ugly enter the castle? Where did she even come from?" Julietta bowed and introduced herself. "I am Julietta Salmon, servant to His Highness Killian of Austin, the Lord of Bertino." Hearing this, the head housekeeper still didn't believe her, saying sharply, "Someone like you has the privilege of serving the prince? That's preposterous. If you want to ruin His Highness's reputation, at least have some limits. Albert, what are you doing? Even favored by the prince, you're careless in your work." Julietta thought, why do so many people like to judge by appearances? Regardless of how someone looks, no one has the right to judge. Finishing her thought, she straightened her back and said, "My master doesn't discriminate based on appearance. But sometimes, some people are cowardly, just like others. They don't even dare to look others in the eye. I'll be going now." After saying this, she turned and left. The head housekeeper, seeing this, said, "A lowly servant dares to talk back to the head housekeeper. I'll report this to the prince. By then, even if you regret it, it'll be too late." After saying that, she also left. The servants behind, seeing the head housekeeper leave, said, "Wow, Albert, usually so strict, even bullied the head housekeeper. Now, how could they choose such a maid? Even for a butler, their ability to judge character is too poor. Yeah, Jeff should be the butler. After all, he's the head housekeeper's grandson." The head housekeeper, still within earshot, thought, "That's right. I'll use this maid situation as an excuse to show the Prince Albert's incompetence and promote Jeff to butler as soon as possible." Then she went to tell Killian, who was sitting with his legs crossed, facing the darkness. He asked, "You dare to question my butler's way of choosing servants?" She was frightened and quickly replied, "Your Highness, that's not what I meant at this moment." Adam explained, "Baroness, it's because that maid was previously dismissed and Jeff was scalded. She's just a temporary replacement." Oswald interjected, "What? I heard that maid spilled tea on Jeff's face, right?" Adam immediately interrupted, "Marquis, be careful with your words. That was just a minor carriage accident." Hearing this, the head housekeeper was startled and said, "Accident? No wonder I haven't seen Jeff yet. Why Jeff's face? Was it really an accident?" Or, as he was saying this, Adam interrupted, "His Highness has already confirmed it was indeed an accident. Jeff is receiving appropriate treatment, so there's no need to worry too much." But she still didn't understand. "If that's the case, shouldn't we be more careful? I'll prepare a new maid for you immediately." At this, Adam shot a swift glance at the silently observing Killian, reminding him, "Your Highness, please don't forget what I just said." Then Oswald said with a laugh, "Head housekeeper, Albert can handle these matters. You needn't worry. Focus on your own work and prepare dinner for the Marquis. If anything goes wrong, Inez will be quite busy, and Albert might lose a few more white hairs." The head housekeeper was about to argue further. "Marquis Oswald, what are you saying?" When Killian barked, "Enough!" His icy gaze fixed on her, he demanded, "How many times must I repeat myself regarding my personal maid? Neither the Count nor the Marquis has the right to interfere. So withdraw. If you're constantly preoccupied with this matter, you'll be distracted and unable to properly receive our guests. I believe that would be far more damaging to my reputation." Seeing that look, the head housekeeper trembled. "Forgive my impertinence, Your Highness." Walking down the corridor, the head housekeeper thought to herself, even her displeasing appearance isn't enough to make the prince completely lose faith in Albert, is it? Suddenly, she stopped and muttered, "Just you wait." Then, with a cold laugh, she whispered, "If this trusted maid chosen by Albert causes a major incident, will you still be so composed?" There was a knock at the door. The girl standing outside called, "Father, it's me, Christine. May I come in?" The prince announced, "Our welcome banquet is prepared." A week prior, Christine was conversing with her mother when she interrupted, "Enough, Christine. Are you still expecting to be the protagonist of a romance novel?" The second daughter of Duke Dudley, the Marchioness of Anus. Ivana's words echoed in her ears. "Don't forget that half of your bloodline belongs to the Dudley family. If this marriage goes smoothly, we'll gain a great deal of power from Grand Prince Francis." Even after seeing how miserable your father and I are, you still harbor such unrealistic dreams. Looking at your foolish face makes my head throb. Now get out. Back in the present, the occupant of the room said, "Come in, Christine. Why are you here?" Christine began to speak. "Father, could you please take me with you to the Bertino Duchy? You know I've been in love with Prince Killian since I was young, and I've always kept this love hidden in my heart. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with someone I don't love. I want to marry the person I love. So please, just this once." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, comforting her. "It's all right. You don't need to say any more, Christine. I will go to Bertino with you." Christine was so moved she could barely speak. "Father, is it true? You're so busy, but thank you so much, Father." Deep down, a thought stirred. "Christine, I've always felt guilty towards you because I can't forgive Ivana. Even my love for you and your brother has long since faded." The voices of the past echoed. Lady Stella couldn't bear the pain of losing her child and passed away soon after. We tried to find out where her daughter was buried, but by the time we reached the lady, she had already. Inez still believed it was undoubtedly Ivana's doing. From the very beginning, it was a forced marriage under the threat of Duke Dudley. Clearly, there was nothing between us that could be called love. When I went to Vichin, Stella and Julietta had already been driven out of the mansion. In the end, all that greeted my return was a cold corpse. Every time I see Christine, the child born just months before Julietta, hatred, longing, guilt, regret, all these complex emotions churn within me. But this time, it might also be an opportunity for us. Clearly, it's a good chance to disrupt Ivana's entire scheme to stand against the Dudley family. Here, Julietta was called out. Killian looked around, assessing the room. "Isn't this room a bit too cramped? The lack of windows makes it feel even more stifling." Julietta feigned delight. "Oh no, I really like it. It's the first time I've stayed in such a nice room. The bed is soft, and there's even a wardrobe and a desk. I'm super satisfied." Killian believed her. Looking around the room again, Julietta, seeing him remain silent, worried she might be dismissed. She was the type to instantly regret things after doing them, arguing fiercely, but the moment she turned around, feeling guilty about getting into a verbal sparring match. Killian didn't know what was going on in her rich inner world. He only saw her acting rashly. "I guess I'm still contemplating whether to tear down and rebuild this small room. If she likes it, we'll call it luck. Maybe it's because she's so simple. Finally found a maid I like, although the rumors surrounding her are truly bothersome." Julietta, noticing he'd been silent for too long, asked herself, wasn't he saying he needed to go to the dining hall early tonight? "So, should we go now?" Killian thought. That haughty head housekeeper said a lot. Taking her along will only draw more attention. Shaking his head, Killian said, "No, I can go alone. More importantly, the dining hall is empty, and you haven't eaten anything. Have you eaten? It's still the servants' mealtime. Go get something to eat and then come back." Julietta walked away, thinking, what's wrong with the prince? Usually, he's always making me change his bathwater or brew tea, all sorts of things. Thanks to him, I've been able to eat on time. Otherwise, I was planning to starve until tomorrow morning. Turning around with a cheerful skip, she exclaimed aloud, how long has it been since I've been this free? The night air is so refreshing. Even for the prince, that room is quite cramped. But from the corner of the props room to a small maid's room, this room has a clean bed and furniture. Now that's a proper room. If I keep working hard and saving money, I'll be able to pay off my debt soon. As she walked around, someone called out, "Hey, you wait." Julietta asked, "Me?" The woman said, "Are you the prince's new maid? Are you on your way to eat?" Julietta replied, "Yes. Is there a problem?" She sized up the person in front of her. She wasn't wearing the usual uniform, perhaps holding a senior position like the head housekeeper. At that moment, the person approached and said, "The cafeteria's mealtime is over. I'm sorry, but because of the time, you'll have to go to the servants' dining hall. The food is a bit scarce, since it also has to cater to the nobles and knights. I'm heading there now, so let me take you." Julietta replied with a smile. "Ah, I see. Thank you." Julietta followed the person, thinking, what's this? What's this? One of the few who doesn't criticize my appearance. She must be a good person. But then she felt, why does this scene feel so familiar? After walking for a while, Julietta asked, "Hey, miss, isn't that the entrance we just passed?" The person said, "That's the main entrance. This way is the servants' entrance." Another person appeared, saying, "What's this?" A masked woman approached and said, "Who is this? Isn't this Sylvia?" Julietta looked at the two, thinking, are they her acquaintances? Then suddenly, a sharp, cruel sound rang out, and an unexpected scene unfolded before her eyes. Julietta, startled by the violent act, rushed in to stop it. "What's going on? Hey, wait, what are you doing? What happened?" Finally, the masked person left. Julietta ran over to help Ivana up. "The knights have arrived, but the guests are still here. What's all the commotion?" Julietta said, "The knights?" A woman suddenly appeared, hit someone, and ran off that way. She ran in that direction. It all happened so suddenly. Suddenly, Ivana spoke. "That's not it." Julietta felt confused again. Suddenly, Ivana pointed at her and said, "Knights, she's lying. It was this maid who hit me." Both Julietta and Sylvia were bewildered, asking, "Hey, what are you talking about? Or is it because of the shock? Your memory is jumbled? Hey, look closely. I didn't hit you, right? I didn't." As soon as she finished speaking, 2 swords were held to her neck. The knight asked, "Were you really hit by this person?" Sylvia declared, "Yes, that's right. I was taking her to the cafeteria, and as we passed the main entrance, she hit me, claiming I was leading her the wrong way. She dared to strike me, the daughter of Viscount Zest. This is blatant slander against a noble. She must be punished accordingly." Julietta could only stammer, Why are you lying? I didn't do anything." Sylvia looked at Julietta, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "It's true, she didn't do anything wrong. But Baroness Pamela will help me if I do as she instructs. Pamela said if we can get rid of Albert and the prince's personal maid, we'll benefit greatly. The Baron has promised to recommend me as the prince's personal maid." And so, Julietta was taken away, leaving behind a yearning gaze at Sylvia. Meanwhile, back with the prince, Christine offered a compliment. "Indeed, your highness attended the dinner and didn't miss a single dish. It was truly delectable. The chef of Nagio, thanks to you." Contrary to her cheerful mood, Killian replied coldly, "You could say that." Undeterred by his coldness, Christine continued, "At Amory's mansion, there are also many highly skilled chefs. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, I'd like to invite you to the mansion next time." Killian began, "I'm busy with state affairs." But then, catching Adam's gloomy look, he reluctantly conceded, "All right, I'll make time." Christine was overjoyed. "Your Highness, I'm so glad to have been invited here today. I hope we can see each other more often in the future." She extended her hand, hoping to take Killian's. Killian said icily, "I haven't given you permission." Just then, Oswald jumped up, exclaiming, I have urgent news to tell you, but I completely forgot. Please forgive me. Dinner is over. Let's discuss official business in the study, Your Highness." Killian rose and departed. "It's an emergency. There's no other choice. Adam, you should come too. Everyone else, please feel free to continue your meal." Once inside the study, Adam said with satisfaction, "Your Highness, your patience is truly remarkable. I'm glad you remember my advice to try and win over that young lady until the crown prince. Francis arrives." Killian grumbled, "How fortunate." Count Adam is pleased. Oswald steered the conversation elsewhere. All right, let's skip that and talk about what we discussed this afternoon." As the maid suggested, we should tear down the wall in front of the jewelry store and replace it with transparent glass. Killian replied, "Indeed. We'll open branches in every nation's capital. After the hunt, we must advertise and select locations." Oswald remarked, "Recruiting goldsmiths and opening stores has taken quite a bit of time." Adam added, "Fortunately, the magic gate will be restored in 2 or 3 months, making it easier to travel back and forth." Oswald brightened. "Truly fortunate. Do you know how shocked I was at the New Year's banquet? Because I don't live in a capital, I wasn't aware that the nobles there were all wearing outdated clothes with tacky patterns. I'd be delighted if someone could show me some beautiful and creative clothes." Suddenly, Albert burst in, his voice urgent. "Your Highness." Killian looked up. "What is it, Albert? I haven't given permission to enter." "Has Prince Francis arrived already?" Albert replied. "No, it's Julietta. She's been imprisoned for assaulting a noble." Killian was stunned. What did he just say? Julietta assaulted someone and a noble. Albert clarified. The person she struck was Sylvia Zest, the second daughter of Viscount Zest. Julietta was caught red-handed, so they took her away. Killian's voice was laced with steel as he spoke, silencing Albert instantly. "Who dares imprison my personal maid? Take me there. I'm bringing Julietta back." Adam tried to stop him. "That's not permitted, Your Highness." Killian was unyielding. "Step aside. Permitted or not is my decision. Adam continued to Changda. For a maid, it's truly inappropriate for your highness to personally go to the prison. Killian stated, those who serve me wholeheartedly are my confidants. Just a mere maid. So, Adam, you're also but my subordinate, a mere count, and you dare to block my path? Have you grown tired of living? Adam, if that's truly how you feel, then so be it. Even if you're a royal prince, this is still a case of a commoner assaulting a noble. What you are about to do is disrupt the class order. Do you want all the nobles to rise up in revolt? Your Highness, first, you need to investigate what actually happened. Consider this. Your personal maid's detainment could be part of someone else's scheme. Killian lifted Adam's chin, his eyes blazing. Do you want me to take your life, Adam? Is that truly what you desire? Adam met his gaze unflinchingly. I harbor no special feelings for her. If you are willing to kill your most loyal subordinate, your closest friend, for her sake, then do it. Killian released him. Get up. Then, tossing his sword to Albert, he commanded, Count, never again refer to someone by my side as a commoner. Oswald, investigate the relationships connected to the woman who was supposedly assaulted, including anyone associated with the Zest family. Oswald breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, Your Highness. It would be ideal if we could persuade Miss Zest to become a witness. It's also possible she was acting on Prince Francis's orders. Conversely, this could become his weakness. Killian paused and thought. For now, investigate whether there were any eyewitnesses near the scene at the time of the incident. Focus on that first. If we can find one, excellent. Otherwise, this could be troublesome. Someone of higher standing than Zest's daughter, who wasn't present at the time. Adam, find out where Duke Martin is currently. Once you locate him, bring him to the mansion immediately. Ensure no one knows. Albert, prepare a room for Duke Martin next to Adam's bedroom. Duke Martin arrived in the territory early, so he may still be resting. If she's been wrongly accused, the only way is to create a false witness. With the plan set in motion, night fell. Killian, cloaked and shrouded in darkness, moved through the shadows. Your Highness, Oswald called out. Don't stop me, Oswald. Killian replied curtly. Hush, Oswald said. Don't think I'm like Adam. I'm only following you because I'm afraid your Highness will draw your sword. Again, so your Highness, this way works too, but let me take you via a shortcut. Save some time. Killian glanced at him. Your familiarity with this place is suspicious. Have you been planning to sneak out? Oswald chuckled. Oh dear, that hurts my feelings. And so, with Oswald leading the way, they walked on. What a beautiful moon tonight. Perfect for a stroll. Wouldn't you agree, Your Highness? Oswald remarked. It's time to make a decision. No matter how much His Majesty loves you, you haven't yet ascended to the position of Crown Prince. If you keep avoiding situations like today's, they're bound to happen again. Even if you successfully rescue that girl from prison, you can't predict what will happen next. So, Your Highness, become the Emperor. Meanwhile, Julietta sat huddled in her cell, knees drawn to her chest. Why would a Viscount's daughter frame a commoner like me? She wondered. She probably wants the position of the prince's personal maid. Even if not, she must be eager to return to the Herod family. Ugh, depressed and hungry. What did I do in my past life to deserve this punishment? That system said it would help me escape this miserable life. But aside from suffering, I don't see any happiness. I don't know anymore. I'm so tired. And so, she slowly closed her eyes. In her hazy state, she heard someone calling her name. Julietta, Julietta. Slowly waking, she murmured, Your Highness? Incredibly, there he stood before her, a look of deep concern etched on his face. Your Highness, are you here to save me? Julietta asked, tears welling in her eyes. Finally, everything is clear. It wasn't me, right? Why did she lie? The tears streamed down her cheeks. Killian whispered, Not yet, but I will get you out tomorrow night. Don't worry. Julietta, overcome with emotion, embraced Killian, sobbing. Your Highness, you are so kind. Thank you. It really wasn't me. Please believe me. Killian gently wrapped his arms around her, comforting her. There, I know. Oswald, observing the two, thought, seeing how much the prince cares, she's clearly more than just a servant. He called out, Your Highness, we should go. Time is running short. Killian said to Julietta, Hold on a little longer. I'll get you out before tomorrow. The next morning, Christine arrived at Killian's study. I heard about your maid this morning. Your Highness. I came because I was worried. Killian replied, You're well informed, Miss Christine. Thank you for your concern, but I'm busy with official duties right now. If it's not something important, please leave. Christine thought, just as expected, this small gesture of goodwill probably won't make His Highness notice me. She added, I was nearby yesterday, Your Highness. Oswald looked surprised. What? Christine continued, I will testify. Your servant is completely innocent. Killian asked, Did you witness the entire incident? Christine shook her head. No. If I had, I would have intervened immediately when the commotion began. I won't forgive anyone who inconveniences the prince, especially at such a crucial time. I will forego the honor of the Onesi family and commit perjury for the prince. Killian asked, why would she go to such lengths? Christine replied, This is simply a sincere act born out of my admiration and concern for your highness. However, if my actions today benefit you, I hope that the person standing by your side in the future will be me. Christine, please remember this. Killian replied, Thank you, Miss Onesi. I understand your feelings, but please excuse yourself now. After Christine left, Killian placed his hand on his forehead. If Duke Martin doesn't arrive in time, this isn't a bad alternative. Oswald sat down beside him with a smile. After all, if you were to marry, as Adams said, isn't Miss Onesi the ideal candidate? Perhaps your highness already has someone in mind. Sylvia trembled with fear, saying, Head housekeeper, my father is already on his way after hearing the news. This is just a play, so I didn't tell my father anything. The head housekeeper interrupted her. The prince didn't react particularly strongly to that servant, just as we anticipated. If Viscount Zest intervenes personally, things will be much easier. So, until then, continue playing the victim. You know there's no turning back now, right? Outside the gate, a carriage had arrived. The attendant bowed. Inside was Marquis, Oswald's servant. The knight said, Not only that, but His Highness summoned all those involved here personally, even the Viscount. Just saving my own skin was hard enough. A while later, inside, Sylvia Zest was being questioned before everyone. Killian slowly asked, According to your statement, you were simply being kind and showing the way, but that servant attacked you for no reason. Is that correct? Sylvia replied, Yes, Your Highness. I was only trying to be helpful. Viscount Zest couldn't help but shout, Your Highness, why aren't you punishing the criminal, but instead interrogating my daughter, as if she were the culprit? Killian said, Albert, repeat the testimony you heard. Albert said, Yes. The maid held in the cell mentioned that a woman in black suddenly appeared and attacked the Viscount's daughter, then ran away. Sylvia wiped her tears, thinking to herself, in the heavily guarded royal palace, how could such a suspicious person appear? Perhaps because she was proud of being the crown prince's personal maid, she said she was different from other ordinary maids, and hit me, saying I made her arrogant. Those outside murmured amongst themselves, My goodness, she hit her hard. Her face is swollen. Killian fixed a glacial stare on Sylvia, his icy gaze making her tremble. His eyes clearly conveyed his skepticism about her testimony. Viscount Zest, frantic, exclaimed, Your Highness, my daughter's face has been struck like this, and you still doubt her? Do you intend to let her off scot-free, just because she's your personal maid? Oswald interjected, reminding the Viscount, Have you misunderstood something? His Highness would never shield a criminal simply because she is his maid. Killian declared, I will never forgive a liar. Sylvia, hearing this, tensed even further. Oswald spoke. Your Highness, both sides present compelling arguments, making a definitive judgment difficult. In that case, I dare to offer a suggestion. Killian thought, too late. I tried to buy more time, but it didn't work. Who set this trap? What's the point of harming your maid? Killian gave Oswald permission to speak. Oswald began, I know of a witness who can ascertain the truth of this matter. A voice rang out, I know of a witness. This caused everyone to turn their heads. Christine, with a confident smile, continued, We can clarify the truth of this matter. The captain of the guard's face paled. She thought in a panic, No way, there's another witness? Hearing this, Oswald played along, saying, A key witness. All eyes focused on the doorway. Oswald called out with a smile, Please enter, Duke Martin. A man walked in through the doorway. On the main road outside, a carriage was traveling. The girl driving it spoke. "Father, I'm sorry, but could you hide under the seat for a moment?" Duke Martin emerged from behind a wooden mirror, saying, "What if we go in and can't get out again?" The girl took off her hat and said to her father, "You're still strong. You won't die." Oswald sat in his chair, thinking, is this really all right? Meanwhile, the girl reassured her father, "I'll disguise myself as the coachman and go with you. Don't worry too much. I'll have to sneak out again soon and return, using the excuse that this servant went to work alone because Marquis Oswald is so picky about clothing." She slowly walked towards the guarded gate. The girl and the carriage slowly approached the palace. Her expression grew serious. She silently wished that this sort of thing happened often, that they would just let us through without inspection. Back in the present, Duke Martin bowed respectfully and said, "Your Highness, due to ill health, I was forced to rest for the entire day. However, hearing that a trial was underway, I came at once." Killian asked with a gentle smile, "Duke Martin, are you feeling better now?" Duke Martin replied with a smile, "After arriving yesterday, I said I was tired and didn't leave my room, causing you some concern. Perhaps it was the long journey that made me so weary. But more importantly, I have some crucial testimony regarding the trial, so I had to be present. I thought everything was resolved after the knights came to help, but things are unfolding a bit differently from what I saw last night." Christine and Oswald continued to stand by, listening. "What I saw through the window before I fell asleep was a maid in black striking another maid, then running away to avoid punishment." Upon hearing this, Sylvia froze as if struck by lightning. "Christine, if that's the case, it aligns perfectly with your Highness's maid's testimony." Oswald stated clearly, "The one who was attacked was the Duke's second daughter, not the Crown Prince's maid, correct?" Duke Martin replied, "Yes, your Highness. I saw it with my own eyes. She was wearing a long dress at the time, so I simply assumed it was a quarrel between maids." This left Sylvia speechless. Killian asked coldly, "Miss Zest, the Duke's statement contradicts yours. How do you explain this? Is Duke Martin lying?" Sylvia was about to explain, "Your Highness," when suddenly a man with a metallic mustache rushed out from behind, shouting, "Sylvia, what's going on?" "Your Highness, I think there's been a misunderstanding." In that moment, fear gripped her, and she stammered, I remembered wrong. It was so dark that night. Someone hit me from behind." Amidst the ensuing silence, Killian began his questioning. At first, she had presented the swelling on her face as evidence of the attack, but her story was riddled with inconsistencies. Sylvia's zest, his tone and demeanor were relaxed, but his eyes remained fixed on her, cold and dark. "If you tell the truth, I will pardon your family. Don't make me angry." Hearing this, Viscount Zest loudly questioned Killian. "What do you mean by that?" The Viscount and the woman with the coiled hair, standing behind his son, both wore grim expressions. "She can't possibly confess, can she? But how much longer can she hold out?" she thought. All it would take was one opportunity. Suddenly, Sylvia, still under interrogation, fainted. Seeing this, Viscount Zest cried out anxiously, "Sylvia!" Killian's expression remained dark as he ordered, "From now on, until this matter is cleared up, you and your daughter are confined to the palace. You are not to leave without my permission." He then turned and instructed the guards to take them away. "Inform me the moment this culprit awakens." He then turned to Anais and Marquis Anais. He continued, "This young lady approached me with a request today. Were you aware of this?" Anais was taken aback. Christine and Oswald stood at a distance, observing the exchange. Christine's face paled. Beside her, Oswald asked, "Christine, what does His Highness mean?" "Christine," Killian said, "escort Miss Segrist to the guest quarters." Sylvia was taken to a resting room. She breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for her timely feigned collapse. Baroness Pamela would surely come to her aid once the servants left. The woman with the coiled hair, sitting at the bedside, remarked, "Your health is quite fragile, isn't it? I never imagined the Crown Prince would push a sick person to such extremes." As she spoke, she removed her hand from Sylvia's. However, the ring on her finger flashed with a strange light. Sylvia, still feigning unconsciousness, felt a peculiar sensation in her chest. What was that? She thought. Suddenly, her vision blurred, and no matter how she mumbled or tried to call out, nothing came out. "Your Highness Where is everyone? In her hazy state, her thoughts drifted. Her voice grew fainter. What's happening? I keep a close watch until the young lady awakens, the woman instructed. Julietta was changing her clothes. A maid's uniform lay on the table. Considering the distance to the servant's bath, she muttered, I don't want to wander around and cause more trouble for myself. She wiped her face with a towel as she spoke. I have to clean everything up before Huang Air gets back to the room, including the bathroom. After washing her face, her pink hair returned to its original golden hue. Elsewhere, Killian mused to himself, becoming emperor. It seems the king wants to make me crown prince as soon as possible. But this life isn't comfortable at all. Managing the Duchess and the Merchants Guild is quite a burden. However, as he pondered further, his thoughts drifted to Julietta, clinging to him helplessly as she cried. Just a thought made his head throb slightly. Aside from that one time, I've never had anything taken from me. I don't know who was behind this, but something like this is bound to happen again. Rubbing his head, he returned to his study and sighed softly. My head is killing me. Dealing with these troublesome matters is keeping me up at night. I'll take a bath and try to relax. Just as he entered the bathroom, he noticed the heavy steam. Were you just thinking about why there's so much steam in the bathroom? As he stepped inside, there was indeed someone inside. Having just asked, who's in there? Killian cried out, his eyes falling upon Julietta, clad in a bathing robe. A startled shriek followed as she frantically patted her face and around her, searching. My glasses, my glasses. Killian stared, bewildered. Julietta, you're free. Suddenly, a flicker of realization crossed his face. Something wasn't right. He stepped forward, grasping her wrist. Wait a minute. Her eyes. Julietta's mind raced, panic seizing her. What'd I do now? Have I finally been discovered like this? She quickly covered her eyes with her hands. Killian's lips twitched slightly at her reaction. Then, abruptly, he asked if she had been crying since last night. Didn't I tell you I would get you out? Julietta looked up at him, utterly shocked. Huh? What? What's this? Wasn't I just caught? But is he actually worried about me? The shock quickly gave way to mortification as the reality of her situation hit her. Her face flushed crimson. But, Your Highness, my clothes, she stammered. A short while later, Julietta, now fully dressed, had her glasses placed back on her nose by Eden. Thank goodness I put on a wig in time, she thought. She then stumbled through an explanation of why she was in Killian's bathroom. The bathroom. Well, it was so dirty, so I cleaned it, and then my clothes got dirty. So I changed, Killian simply replied. If that's the case, it's fine. I'm glad you're healthier than I thought. Julietta blinked, surprised. A wave of deflation washed over her. What was she thinking? She'd assumed his kindness stemmed from guilt, but why was he being so gentle? Something felt off. Suddenly, Killian stepped closer. Come to think of it, you haven't eaten properly, have you? Julietta startled, taking a step back. Killian's voice was soft as he told her he had already instructed Albert to bring her food and that she should rest properly by his side today. Julietta stared at his handsome face, so close to hers, a silent warning flashing in her mind. Warning? Too strange. Has the atmosphere suddenly become too strange? A sly smile played on Killian's lips. That's right. If you don't want her taken away, you have to make her yours. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the moment. It was Oswald bursting into the room. Your Highness, something terrible has happened. Miss Zest is exhibiting unusual symptoms. He'd flung the door open with such force that it slammed against the wall. Your Highness, a serious incident. He faltered, taking in the scene before him. Have I interrupted something? He asked hesitantly, then seemed to recollect himself, waving his hands frantically. No, that's not it. It's not like that. But this is truly urgent, so please forgive me. The physician had examined Sylvia and declared she was likely to become a vegetable. Unable to even move a finger, she could only blink. Killian grabbed his cloak. When Adam arrives, tell him to meet me in the study. Have the guards keep a close watch on those accompanying Marquis Onist. From now on, we must tighten security at Colin Castle. Not even a mouse should be able to escape. Before leaving, he turned back to Julietta. Julietta, you just need to eat well, sleep well, and rest. Albert will bring your meal shortly. Yes, she replied instantly. How can he change his attitude so quickly? She wondered inwardly. That was dangerous just now. Who knew such a captivatingly handsome man could exist in real life? Killian, meanwhile, went to meet the royal chamberlain, Duke Giuliani, who was also the Austrian emperor's cousin. The Duke greeted His Highness, remarking that it had been a while and that he'd heard something serious had occurred. Killian addressed him politely. Duke Giuliani, please come in. Forgive me for not receiving you with a formal ceremony, as the current situation is rather hectic. Giuliani replied, No, I should be the one apologizing. Coming here so early, I haven't been of much help to your highness. He feigned a smile. Well then, I shall return to my room and rest for a while. We can meet again after you've dealt with the urgent matters. His age showed as he walked, leaning heavily on his cane. Before meeting Killian, Duke Giuliani inquired of a maid, Is the girl locked up in the dungeon the one? The maid curtsied. Yes, my lord. The servant recommended by Madame Auguste will be arriving soon as well. A dark chuckle rumbled in his chest. Good. It's not too late. She's just had a near-death experience, so she's unlikely to refuse the offer. His mind drifted back 2 months prior to a meeting with the woman with the coiled hair. It's an honor to have you here. Giuliani seemed to already know her, having warned her long ago. The board, we don't have much time, so let's get straight to the point. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Find me a girl like that. At his words, the woman replied, You know that girls with blonde hair and blue eyes aren't easy to find. If you'll pardon my asking, what do you need such a girl for? Giuliani responded, I know you're cautious. But the woman countered, My lord, the reason I've held this position for so many years is that I always forget everything I hear. Giuliani looked at her. As you well know, I need someone to impersonate my daughter. The people at the academy must be well aware that after my wife passed away, my daughter was taken to the territory to be raised. The woman acknowledged this. Indeed, my lord, but I've heard that everyone is eager to meet her, as the young miss has been living in seclusion. Giuliani began to speak of his daughter. In truth, my daughter is quite frail. She spent most of her life either bedridden or listlessly sitting, gazing out the window. However, if this continues, the position of the sole heir to the Duke's family will be threatened, and others in the family will surely be dissatisfied. The dukedom will inevitably fall into their hands. Even if the title is secondary, my daughter must inherit it. Even after my death, the possibility of her life being overturned by a new duke she doesn't even know must be prevented. His hand tightened slightly as he spoke. The woman with the coiled hair asked, So that's why you came to me? I just need blonde hair and remove the green, right? Then she said, I happen to know a girl who fits your requirements. It wouldn't be so bad for Julietta anyway. It's better than pretending to be a maid for the rest of her life. Even if it's just acting, living like a noble is much better. I once saw the Duchess from afar, and I heard that the young miss looks exactly like her. Giuliani replied, That's right. That's why we need a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's a characteristic of the Onist family, the young Mrs. relatives. Suddenly, the woman with coiled hair spoke. Since you and I have shared a hidden secret, I'll also tell you an important truth and another secret I've kept hidden for 10 years. Marquis Anais also has an illegitimate child. Giuliani responded, I heard that child passed away with his mother last year. Then she revealed, Marquis Anais's illegitimate child has been raised by me, their identity completely hidden as per the Marchioness's orders. Julietta suddenly overheard something that made her panic. What? Albert wiped away his sweat, thinking His Highness must be unwell somewhere, but an order is an order. He told her, after the meeting yesterday, the prince called me aside and said he wanted to make Julietta the queen. Elsewhere, Killian's team was discussing handling the case as a suicide. Oswald seemed to be listening intently. Although Sylvia Zest can no longer speak, she will die soon. More importantly, someone is deliberately manipulating things behind the scenes. Keep a close eye on Baroness Pamela, especially after Francis arrives. See if there's any interaction between them or if they show any strange signs. The atmosphere in the room suddenly dropped. Killian was reading a report and speaking with Albert. From now on, when Julietta and I are alone in the bedroom, you are not to enter without permission. Albert was startled by this. As for Killian, he continued, saying that once they returned to Austin, he would arrange a position for her in the royal city. So be prepared. When we return, Albert informed Julietta glumly, I will be in charge of external affairs until the new servants arrive in Austin. When they do, Miss Salmon's identity will be formally announced. Julietta's eyes widened in alarm. Wait, just a moment, she exclaimed. Hold on, steward. That's not what I meant. Albert stared, bewildered. Why would you refuse? Julietta rushed to explain. Why wouldn't I? Think about it. I was the maid attending to him at his bedside. I've already seen things I shouldn't have. She practically shrieked. and now you want me to develop that kind of relationship with him? Even if love has become more liberal these days. Albert stood there, feeling as if he'd turned to stone. How dare she refuse his highness? But your highness, are you even aware of your own past? He thought incredulously. Killian, it seemed, saw nothing wrong with his proposition. Albert stammered, trying to salvage the situation. Miss Salmon, I understand what you mean. Well, His Highness is currently inspecting the hunting competition grounds, so I'll report this matter when he returns. Julietta's mind raced. Would refusing like this cause any trouble? She wondered. However much others might envy me, when I think of my fate and the night my mother was abandoned, I don't believe becoming a princess would bring happiness. With a respectful bow, she said, "Please tell His Highness that even if it's an order, I cannot obey." Then, turning back to Albert, she inquired, "Sir, do you know when His Highness will return?" Albert turned his head. "Ah, he's inspecting the hunting grounds, so he probably won't be back until tomorrow afternoon. Until then, please rest and recover well." With that, he left the room. Left alone, Julietta muttered to herself, "So that's why His Highness has been acting unusually gentle lately? What's going on in his head? Turning a maid like me into a princess." She opened her dressing table as she spoke. "But if that stubborn prince has made up his mind, I have no choice. The best strategy is to retreat." She moved purposefully towards a waiting carriage. A maid pulled back the curtain and glanced down at Julietta standing in the courtyard. "My lord," she addressed Giuliani. "That's the girl, isn't it? Just like we saw her last time at Count Badon's mansion. Isn't that the way out of the castle?" Giuliani considered this. The prince and his attendants went to the hunting grounds for a field inspection today, he thought. Perhaps Bertino Castle wouldn't let a newly arrived maid linger outside the castle walls for too long. Although the exact circumstances are unclear, now is my chance. Julietta offered a warm greeting. "It's an honor to meet you. I'm truly grateful for this ride." Inside the carriage, Giuliani smiled. "Don't mention it. I'm doing this because I happen to have something to discuss with you. Perhaps it's fate. I heard about you from Maribel in the school group." Julietta's face paled slightly. Maribel? She thought. Wait, could it be? I've been paying my debts on time. Why would she sell me to a middle-aged nobleman? Giuliani dipped his head slightly. "I don't know what you're thinking right now, but don't worry, it's not like that. I'm proposing to offer you work far more comfortable than being a servant." Julietta replied, "I understand, my lord." The carriage came to a stop. Removing her spectacles, Julietta addressed him directly. "Although your daughter is the rightful heir, her health is too poor. So you want me to impersonate her, correct?" Giuliani commended her quick understanding. "This summer, as long as the debut ceremony goes smoothly, if you maintain the impersonation until you are recognized as the official heir of the Giuliani family, I will pay you 10,000 thunes." Julietta's eyes lit up. 10,000 thunes. That's enough to pay off my debt to Madame Maribel and even open a small shop. Opportunity always favors the prepared, she thought resolutely. So this time, I won't be afraid or back down. The carriage came to a halt. "The time and price are set," Julietta stated, "but you must guarantee my safety after the job is done. Sir, please draft a contract with all the terms and conditions." From the carriage, a pair of black high heels. "Step down." A beautiful girl with wavy hair emerged, clad in a stunning red and black dress. Her very presence seemed to declare, "If this mission succeeds, I will live the free life I've always dreamed of." Julietta smiled softly. In a normally quiet forest, something stirred, sending a flock of birds scattering into the sky. An arrow pierced its target, blood blooming crimson. A voice echoed, "Hunting is just a game." "All right, that's enough." Killian gave the order. Back at the camp, someone asked if His Highness was still determined to keep Jeff by his side. "He will be," Killian replied, but with far more caution than before. Adam spoke up. "Do you still believe Baroness Pamela is behind this?" Because she felt her grandson Jeff's position was usurped by Julietta. "I've told you before," Killian stated, "always keep your enemies close." This was all caused by Pamela's greed, or perhaps she was manipulated by someone else. "We need to keep a close eye on her, so we can catch her red-handed." As he spoke, a dark aura seemed to emanate from him. Oswald wanted to weep inwardly. His Highness rarely smiled, but whenever he did, that handsome face sent shivers down his spine, shivers of pure terror. Suddenly, Killian addressed them all. "After we return to the castle, I will officially instate Julietta as queen." Oswald exclaimed, "Your Highness," but Killian cut him off. "I won't allow her to be placed in any more dangerous situations, nor those around us. To achieve this, We will become the next emperor." As he spoke, Killian's expression hardened with resolve. Adam and Oswald stood stunned, then immediately knelt respectfully. "Lord Oswald, Lord Adam," they declared, "will contribute all our strength to support your Highness's ascension to the throne." He strode briskly, muttering, "I hope no further harm comes to Julietta." Suddenly, a knight burst in from outside. "Your Highness, forgive my intrusion, but Steward Albert has urgent news. The maid named Julietta has disappeared from the palace." At this, Killian froze, then slammed his hand down on the table. "Why suddenly?" he demanded, his voice dangerously low. "Perhaps she was kidnapped?" The knight shook his head. "No, her personal belongings are gone as well, so it doesn't appear to be a kidnapping. She vanished after receiving the prince's order." Adam and Oswald exchanged bewildered glances, for a chorus of shocked murmurs rippled through the room. Killian covered his face wearily, letting out a low, exasperated sigh. She ran." Suddenly, Adam spoke, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Oh dear, what a pity." Killian shot him a warning look. "Adam, don't sound so cheerful about it." A sharp knock echoed on the door. The hooded figure addressed the coiled-haired woman who had just opened the door. "I've been sent by Duke Giuliani. My name is Julietta." Before she could finish, the woman pulled her forcefully into the room. The door slammed shut. "Remove your hood," the coiled-haired woman instructed. Beneath the hood was Arcinian. Laban observed her, commenting, "Those eyes, the theater school's troupe, did well to find such an aged duchess." The woman then introduced herself as Marchioness Laban, Duke Giuliani's sister. "After 2 months of training here to become a true Georgian noblewoman, she will appear at Alice's coming-of-age ceremony." Then, pointing at her, she added coldly, "But remember, you are nothing but a counterfeit. Even if she wanted to be real, she couldn't." Julietta, hearing this, dipped her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "I know this poor girl is already suffering," she thought, "but she shouldn't show her displeasure so openly." Then she spoke. "I'm not that kind of person. As soon as the job is done, and I receive the promised payment," Julietta continued, her voice steady, "I just want to save enough money to live a peaceful life somewhere where no one knows me. I'm a bastard child, an orphan who lost her mother at a young age. Do you know why I've survived until now? Because I know my place. I only do the work that befits the pay I receive. I don't harbor any excessive thoughts or unrealistic dreams." Her demeanor remained unfazed, untouched by any perceived threat. Back at the castle, everyone was investigating Julietta's escape route. "Are you certain you've been monitoring everyone entering and leaving the gates?" one asked. The guard reported clearly, "Yes. Of course, as soon as we heard from Albert, we dispatched men to search the entire palace and city. But even after thoroughly checking the entry and exit logs, we found nothing." Killian continued his investigation. "Tell me about everyone who entered or left the city today, regardless of their status." Besides those who accompanied the prince to the hunting grounds, there was a maid on leave, 2 royal knights, 3 assistant cooks, and Duke Giuliani, Your Highness. Killian paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Among those who went out, was anyone accompanied by someone you haven't seen before?" The gate guard continued his report. "All the servants left on foot. No one took a carriage. Oh, come to think of it, there was a blonde-haired girl wearing a full cloak inside Duke Giuliani's carriage." Killian asked, surprised. "She concealed herself even while inside the carriage?" Oswald spoke up. "I spoke with Duke Giuliani yesterday, and I distinctly remember him only bringing 1 servant and a coachman. Suspicious." In the tea room, Killian summoned Duke Giuliani for a discussion. "Duke, it said you went out today." Giuliani replied calmly, "Yes, it's my first time here, and I simply went out to purchase a gift for my daughter." Killian inquired, "Will Miss Giuliani be making her debut this year? I heard she was quite frail and had to go to her territory for treatment. I wonder if she's feeling better now." Giuliani responded, "No, Your Highness. My daughter is in perfect health, and there won't be any issues on her debut day." "Fortunate indeed. We look forward to meeting the princess," Killian said, gently stroking his chin. "By the way, could you tell me who the blonde-haired girl was who was in the carriage with you? If I recall correctly, you only brought 1 servant and a coachman when you arrived." "On my way out of the palace, I happened to encounter a servant heading towards the main gate, so I offered her a ride. I was thinking of my daughter at the time, so I didn't pay much attention. Giuliani remained composed as he answered, "If it's the maid your highness is looking for, I believe it wasn't her. Has she committed some grave offense?" Killian clasped his hands together and spoke slowly. "No. She's simply someone who nearly lost her life after being caught up in someone else's scheme. Since we still don't know who's behind it, she's a key witness. But she suddenly disappeared. Shouldn't we investigate if she's involved in something?" Hearing this, Giuliani feigned a smile. "The girl I gave a ride to, she got off as soon as we reached the city. If you ask the coachman, he'll likely remember where he dropped her off." She answered firmly without hesitation. Killian thought to himself, "But why do I have this uneasy feeling?" Ultimately, he couldn't find any cracks in his facade, so he simply said, "All right, I'll send someone to find the coachman, Duke." After seeing him off, Oswald asked Killian, "What did he say?" "That blonde-haired girl is certainly suspicious, but if she was planning to escape, why wear such a conspicuous wig? Blonde hair is rare to begin with. How could a maid afford such a wig?" Adam mused, stroking his chin. "Let's see." With some help, still unsure, Killian spoke first. "We need to see if there are any blonde-haired servants in the city. Focus on the area where Duke Giuliani dropped the servant off, and find any girls with those characteristics." Killian pursed his lips. "Julietta, the maid with orange hair and thick glasses. What is your true face once those spectacles are removed?" Julietta asked, a puzzled expression on her face. "Do I need to wear a wig, too?" Marchioness Laban, standing beside her, replied, "Ever since you flashed that blonde hair leaving the city gates, the royal knights are now searching for a blonde girl." Laban sighed, continuing, "So what did you do to make them search for a runaway maid like this?" Julietta thought innocently, "They're looking for me, but they don't even know why I ran away." She covered her face in embarrassment, thinking, "This makes sense, doesn't it? The prince ordering a search for a maid who ran away because she didn't like him. Even a dog would find it laughable." Julietta broke the tense atmosphere surrounding Laban. "Let's see, I almost got killed before leaving that place. Maybe that's why they're looking for me." Laban, upon hearing this, tapped Julietta's shoulder with her fan in response. She yelped, clutching her sore shoulder. Beside her came Laban's admonishment again. "How many times have I told you, a noble lady doesn't hunch her shoulders like that?" Laban sighed in exasperation, hoping that once they left Giuliani's territory, she would break this uncouth habit. Since the prince is looking for her, the situation seems more dangerous now. For the time being, call me Countess Simone. Julietta smiled brightly and patted her chest confidently. "Yes, madam, I'll keep that in mind." Elsewhere, Alice held Laban's hand and pleaded, "Aunt, please protect my position. I don't want to be driven out of Tilia. I've lived here all my life." Just like how my aunt had to leave the Laban estate because her nephew became the new marquis, taking her husband's place, because they didn't have any children. Laban listened silently, feeling a pang of frustration, but still said nothing. Alice's eyes grew colder as she said, "No one is allowed to know about Alice." Giuliani's condition. Laban calmly replied, "Yes. Isn't that why we drove everyone out of the mansion years ago?" "Alice, you don't have to worry." Alice began to explain her plan to Laban. "Aunt, educate the stand-in. Turn her into a perfect Lady Giuliani. Even if I have to hide in the shadows for the rest of my life, I will protect my position to secure the Duchess's seat. Your future will be guaranteed. You understand this, right?" Laban's lonely back had no choice but to obey Alice's arrangements. Inside the mansion, someone asked, "Can we assume that Julietta ran away?" Maribel laughed. "Marchioness Laban, Marchioness Anais is a very suspicious person. When the girl I sent disappears, and Madame Giuliani suddenly appears, what will happen? The moment she sees that blonde hair and blue eyes resembling her husband's, she'll surely suspect it's a scheme her husband devised for an illegitimate daughter, rather than thinking she looks like the Duchess Giuliani." Maribel already anticipated Ivana's extremely displeased expression when she learned the truth. Laban said anxiously, "But it's not easy to find a blonde and blue-eyed corpse of that age." While Laban was still stroking her chin, thinking of another way, Maribel came up with an idea. "That madam doesn't necessarily have to find corpse. Levdom's entertainment district, under the wings of angels, as long as you have the money, everything can be resolved. Even if they can't find someone with pure blonde hair and blue eyes, as long as the damaged corpse has similar features, they'll definitely be fooled." Laban had to hold her head and tell herself that she knew it was all for the plan, but to sacrifice so much. Julietta, who grew up secretly in the theater, would be considered the child Mirabelle brought back. But since even the prince was looking for that child, the corpse of the maid, Julietta, was needed. Laban finished packing the suitcase full of clothes and closed it. Suddenly, she realized someone was beside her. There were a few crumpled design drawings. The sky was calm and blue, but a scheme was quietly underway. Laban called out, "Julietta, come here. I'll tell you the next plan." Julietta peeked her head in from the doorway and asked, "What plan?" Laban frowned, reminding Julietta, "A noble lady doesn't do that. How many times do I have to tell you? Before you understand, don't bob your head when asking others questions. Speak clearly." Julietta knew she was in the wrong and could only offer an awkward smile, though inwardly a flicker of annoyance sparked. Then, stiffening her neck, she responded, "Yes, madam. What's the next plan?" Julietta's gaze fell upon the neatly folded clothes in Laban's hands, and she paused. Julietta's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait, are you holding my luggage?" "Sit down. Were you searching my room?" Julietta asked Laban, her displeasure evident. "I told you to sit down." Laban had to repeat herself, her tone growing colder. Julietta, squatting down to inspect the suitcase, retorted, "Even if I take on the job of impersonating Lady Alice, I won't lose my identity. If you continue to act like this, even if you pay me 10,000 tune, I won't be able to continue." With that, Julietta slammed the suitcase shut. Julietta's eyes reddened. Even if I might be just an ordinary person in the eyes of others, she thought, the only things that can prove who I am are these items filled with memories. Laban, her brow furrowed in annoyance, said, "Even though I know this entire secret, do you think you can just give up to escape the prince's pursuit? I need to prepare a corpse." Julietta froze. "A corpse," Laban elaborated. "Prince Bertino is still looking for you, so I have to create a diversion. You don't want to attract attention, do you? She's a clever one, even making my brother write a contract. But if the Duke sets his mind to it, that piece of paper is useless." At this, Julietta was stunned by Laban's words. Deep down, she realized she had made a grave mistake. This wasn't the modern world. Things wouldn't unfold as she imagined, so she had to be more vigilant. Recognizing her error, Julietta hastily apologized. "I'm sorry, Countess Simone. I might have been a bit too emotional because I was angry." Even though she knew it was wrong, Julietta added a condition. "But I hope you won't touch my belongings again. We're all in the same boat." Laban sighed and conceded. "Fine. Back to the main issue. I need the maid uniform you were wearing at the time." "As far as I know," Mirabelle said, "she was the prince's personal maid, so her hair and appearance were disguised. To find the perfect substitute, I need you to describe her in detail." Laban looked at Julietta expectantly, but Julietta threw cold water on her hopes. "There's no need to prepare for my disguised appearance. The prince discovered my real appearance long ago." Laban panicked, grabbing Julietta's shoulders. "What did you say? Your real appearance was discovered?" Julietta quickly clarified. No, it's not like that." In his eyes, "I'm an ordinary, greasy, dirty, brown-haired maid. Oh, and one more thing. I usually wear thick glasses and my eyes are brownish with a hint of green, quite easy to recognize." Julietta explained cheerfully, gesturing to the glasses in her hand. "I hope no more innocent lives will be sacrificed." Julietta offered a strained smile. Of course, saying this while stepping into this dangerous job sounds a bit hypocritical, but if possible, Julietta began to ramble, and Laban started to see her in a different light. She lowered her eyes slightly, thinking, so she was upset because her belongings were touched. Fortunately, at least she isn't the type to do anything for her own safety. Laban reassured Julietta, "We'll try our best to find a suitable corpse, so don't worry. It might be difficult to find a corpse that resembles the previous disguise, but if it's a dying child from the slums, perhaps we can find one. I've come this far. I can no longer escape my sins. Alice must become the next Duke of Hallyne, and I must assume that position as the one who raised the Duke." Killian was writing a letter when someone came to report. "Your Highness, we found a body in the Dewey River." Killian calmly said, "How very detailed. It's a female corpse, auburn hair, face a little difficult to identify, but the clothes look very similar to what the maid was wearing when she left the palace. And the clothes are bigger than the body." Killian's eyes widened in shock as he listened to the report, then commanded, "Bring that body to me immediately." Quickly, Killian ordered, his gaze fixed on the sodden, red-haired corpse. Remove the clothes from the body. Oswald covered his mouth in horror. Your Highness, I understand your feelings, but she's already met such a tragic end. Must you also remove her clothes? Standing beside the corpse, Killian said, something feels off. The hair color and physical characteristics match, but I still feel a sense of discrepancy. Adam hesitantly offered, Your Highness, I know you don't want to believe it, but this truly is Julietta. Hasn't she always worn baggy clothes to hide her true appearance? The only one who knows her real face is the prince. Adam's words struck Killian like a knife, a look of sorrow washing over his features. Everyone, turn around, Killian stated stubbornly. Then I will confirm directly. Albert frantically tried to stop him. Your Highness, just kill me instead. It's all that old man's fault, letting Julietta leave without knowing anything. Albert clutched Killian's wrist, pleading. Adam, too, moved to prevent Killian. Your Highness, I'll call another maid over. Please, don't touch the body directly. The memory of that trembling hand surfaced in Killian's mind. He silently cradled his chin, lost in thought for a long moment. I found something. A flicker of hope ignited within Killian. Then, he burst into laughter, a manic sound that startled the surrounding servants. Tears welled in Albert's eyes. Your Highness, have you lost your mind from the shock of the maid's death? Killian immediately refuted Albert's claim. No, this corpse is not Julietta. Are there any distinguishing features on her? Killian asked, his hand still cupping his chin. Yes, thinking back, there are some things that only I would recognize. And it's not our first time seeing it, but we remember seeing it a long time ago. Looking at the corpse, Killian commanded, bury this body in a place with plenty of sunlight, as someone who once served me. Give her a proper funeral. Only after everything was done did the pale-faced Oswald dare to grumble, finally taking the body away. Watching Oswald's expression, Adam asked curiously, You hate the smell of blood and are afraid of corpses, so how did you get so good with a sword? Oswald, switching into self-admiration mode, flashed a dazzling smile. With his handsome face, Adam replied wearily, I knew I shouldn't have asked, but how can you and the prince be so calm? That corpse, soaked in water, just thinking about it makes me nauseous. Oswald shuddered, wanted to call for Hugh. Looking at Killian's back, Adam remained silent, unsure what to say. Adam recalled Killian's stubbornness. Is it really not Julietta? I mean no disrespect, but don't rely entirely on your own intuition. Killian insisted firmly. That body is completely different now. Even soaked in water, it wasn't as slender as Julietta. The length and shape of the legs are different too. Killian remembered the most crucial clue. Most importantly, that body didn't have Julietta's mole. He stroked his chin, sharing his thoughts. It seems like someone deliberately planted an old corpse to hide Julietta. Who knows what will happen if we continue the search, so it's best to stop for now. Looking at Oswald and Adam, Killian assigned their tasks. Oswald was to secretly investigate Julietta before returning to the mansion, while Adam was to continue monitoring Duke Giuliani. But the Duke's testimony at the time didn't have any holes at all. At first glance, yes, but I find it puzzling that he came all the way to Bertino at this time to support me. Killian looked up at the sky. Adam voiced his deduction. However, there's no aristocrat who can secure their political standing at this juncture. Yet, this is also the time he must hold his breath for his daughter's future. He's not as eager as others to put his daughter on the throne, but that makes me even more suspicious. Even just to throw him off balance, we must thoroughly investigate Duke Giuliani. Elsewhere, a carriage prepared to depart the city. This is Viscount Simon and Miss Layla. Under this lady's supervision, the man announced. The gatekeeper stopped the carriage. Due to the national holiday and hunting competition, we must inspect every passing vehicle. I apologize for the intrusion, but I must check inside. Julietta, now playing the role of Layla, having undergone a transformation in appearance, her golden hair now darkened, her black attire adding to the melancholic air of the supposed tragedy, traveled in the carriage. They were returning after an incident at Miss Layla's home. Even the disguise couldn't fully mask Julietta's inherent beauty. Is there anything else you need to search? The soldier suddenly seemed to realize something. No, apologiza. There's nothing unusual. You may all pass. Safe travels. The carriage safely cleared the city gates. Laban breathed a sigh of relief. Before we leave Rick Allen, be careful not to reveal your true self to anyone until we reach Tilia, she cautioned Julietta. Yes, my lady, Julietta responded. At Tilia, within the grand estate of Duke Giuliani, Laban inquired of the butler. Nothing happened while we were away, did it? No, my lady. Fortunately, the young Miss's condition hasn't worsened. Yesterday, Miss was able to walk, so I believe there's still hope for the future. It seems to have had a positive effect on her health. Laban sighed and instructed the butler. All right, I'll go to Iris first. Prepare everything I told you about regarding that maid. Julietta's golden hair was being brushed by a maid. She asked directly, so, what kind of person is Miss Alice? The maid's face remained somber for a long moment. Julietta, already anticipating the response, could only sigh inwardly. Of course, if I ask a few questions to start a conversation, she won't respond to me, she thought. But the maid suddenly spoke. The young miss is a beauty, intelligent, and very elegant. Aside from her frail health, she is a perfect lady. Julietta mused. Well, it certainly is nice to live in an environment where you lack nothing. If the young miss were healthier, there would be nothing to fault. It's a shame to think that while she plays my double, I have to live in hiding. The maid, silent but well-meaning, placed a hand on Julietta's shoulder, looking at her in the mirror. Miss, please don't become her enemy. Unnecessary sympathy is meaningless, and don't covet what doesn't belong to you. That's all I can say. In a luxurious room, the frail and thin Iris sat upon her bed. Despite her condition, Iris exuded an aristocratic air. Iris was precious, incredibly beautiful. Aunt, do we look alike? Iris asked Laban, her gaze fixed on Julietta. Julietta spoke up. Of course, Mississippi. While we aren't identical, we share half the same blood, so we aren't that different. Is that so? Iris immediately stated the plan. Tomorrow we will move to the villa. But even if we try to avoid it, it will be difficult to keep the mansion staff from noticing. If all goes well, this may be the first and last time we meet. That makes sense. Our relationship doesn't require frequent meetings, nor does it need to become closer for any reason. Iris drew a clear line between herself and Julietta. The more she looked at Julietta, the more she felt like she saw a reflection of herself. The golden hair, the sparkling emerald eyes, the vibrant countenance, as if proving she was still alive. But this fueled Iris's envy. No matter how much she yearned for it, she could never possess those things. Why does she have everything? Iris clutched the blanket tightly, yet still managed to speak rationally. My name is Iris Regina Giuliani, and you're Julietta, correct? Julietta answered softly, yes, my lady. Iris looked at Julietta. From now on, your name is also Iris. Use this name well and return it to me intact. This was Iris's first warning to Julietta. Looking at Laban, Iris said, Aunt, call me Regina from now on. She loathed even a momentary thought of being mistaken for someone like Julietta. Iris smiled sweetly, but her words were barbed with thorns. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Spencer arrived quickly. Did you have a pleasant trip? Killian asked. Rhodes, taking off his coat, grumbled. I went out without checking the date and ran into Francis in the streets. I'm about to explode. Maybe I should have gone with you. Rhodes immediately countered his own suggestion. Do you want a bloodbath? Though, if victory were guaranteed, I might pretend to charge in. Killian laughed brightly. It takes a special talent to make a pacifist like you so angry. Rhodes sighed. If it weren't for that bastard, I wouldn't bother remembering these troublesome political disputes. Now he's sneaking around doing all sorts of dirty deeds. I can't imagine how bad things will get if he becomes king. I might lose my head soon, but he'll be there before me. Haven't met him yet. I haven't met him yet. I heard he went sightseeing outside the city first. Rhodes asked, did he go visit the lady in the East District first? Always so hasty. Killian analyzed the situation. Among the ladies of marriageable age, besides Miss Kairini, who hasn't made an appearance yet, the highest ranking is Miss Juanise. He has to marry the highest-ranking woman in Austria to become emperor. It's probably because he believes that swindler fortune-teller's prophecy. Rhodes said anxiously, Killian, after all, she was deeply loved by the queen, and she foresaw quite a few things. So she might be trustworthy. Killian sneered. She was once wildly popular among the nobles for guessing a few trivial things correctly, but the mere fact that they couldn't prevent the queen's assassination makes them nothing but a fraud. Killian clenched his fist. If she were truly a great prophet, why couldn't she foresee such a significant event? Rewinding to the past, Killian was still a naive boy, his bright eyes full of curiosity about everything. Killian, you like looking out the window, don't you? Killian sat in the carriage, watching everything pass by waiting for the magic circle to recover. We have a long way to go to get to Bertino. I'm glad you're not bored. The gentle and beautiful woman sitting next to Killian was Queen Cordelia of Austin. It would be even more joyful if my mother were here too. Why did she have to follow along today, of all days? The servant sitting opposite them said cheerfully, Prince Killian, enjoy your visit with Her Majesty. Be sure to brag about it to the second princess when you get back. The carriage slowly moved through the forest. Killian had fallen asleep by this point. Cordelia spoke to the servant, Liana. For some reason, I feel a bit strange. The knights guarding the carriage are very strong. Their abilities are not to be underestimated. Cordelia looked outside, trying to remain calm. There's no way they could be defeated by bandits so easily. The soldiers fell one by one, collapsing onto the cold ground. We need to hide Killian, Cordelia said. Killian woke up. Your Majesty, I know you're not feeling well, but could you stay here for a moment? Killian rubbed his eyes, unsure of what was happening. Cordelia said, No, Liana, if they are who we think they are, they will definitely search this place first. They know Killian went to Bertino with us. Killian, do you know how much I love you? Cordelia spoke her last words to Killian tenderly. I love you so much. I could do anything for you. Killian replied innocently, I love you very much too. What I'm about to say might be hard for you, a noble prince, to bear. But, Killian, no matter what happens, you must live. Cordelia embraced Killian and instructed him. Pride is meaningless in the face of life and death. When you grow up, you can become emperor if you want to, and if you don't have to force yourself. So promise me, you'll only do what you want to do and live a happy life, okay? Cordelia asked Killian, a beautiful, sad smile gracing her lips. Killian simply nodded slightly. All right, you're a good boy. Killian is such a good boy. Outside, the assassins, having dispatched all the soldiers, were closing in on the carriage, weapons raised to shatter the wood and glass. The carriage was battered repeatedly. Cordelia sat calmly, resigned to her fate. Cordelia's voice rang out, sharp and demanding. Who sent you? I'm quite certain you're not ordinary bandits. A gruff voice answered from outside. Save your breath. You're all going to die soon anyway. What does it matter if you know who sent us? While I'm certain of my death, I'd at least like to know who wants me dead. Cordelia continued to attempt to negotiate with the assassins. Will you spare my maid if we don't ask? The assassin's voice was resolute. Of course not. I have orders to leave no one alive, not even an ant. In that case, just tell me who's behind this. Was it Duke Dudley who sent you to assassinate me? Cordelia had already guessed the mastermind, and the assassin's silence only confirmed her suspicions. Thank you. This puts my mind at ease, knowing I won't die at the hands of mere bandits. At the very least, don't touch my body. The leader assured Cordelia, we give you our word. Very well. I will trust that promise. I will die with no regrets. Wait, Sir Randolph, I don't see the prince and the second princess. A voice said suspiciously from beside him. Cordelia answered calmly. Killian and Irene weren't feeling well, so they returned to the castle. It seems you haven't received the news yet. One of the men entered the carriage to search. They're not in here. A sword flashed, and Liana fell, lifeless. Liana's body slumped against Cordelia. The brutal bandit sneered, a loyal maid indeed. Her Majesty won't be lonely on her journey to the underworld. It's a shame the second princess and Prince Killian couldn't join her. Tears streamed down Cordelia's face. Her fate was sealed, about to die by an assassin's blade. Farewell, Your Majesty. 2 days later, the Queen's carriage is here. Reinforcements had discovered the ravaged remains. Strange, Prince Killian's body is missing, a guard remarked after searching the area. There are no other carriages around. Could they have kidnapped the crown prince first? Let's take the Queen's body first. We can't leave her here forever, Count. Look at this. A soldier, lifting Cordelia's body, discovered the unconscious form of Killian hidden beneath her skirts. The soldiers realized the Queen must have hidden the prince beneath her, which explained why the maid had fallen face down. The First Legion and I will escort the Queen's remains back to the royal palace. The rest of you, check the surroundings and bring back the bodies of the other knights. Queen Cordelia's voice echoed in his memory. Killian, from now on, no matter what you hear, don't scream or come out, understand? Don't open your eyes. We don't know if they're still around. What if I can never escape from here? Killian jolted awake, his face etched with terror, haunted by the nightmare. Killian clutched his forehead, cursing. No, damn it. Back then, Duke Dudley had only one reason to assassinate the queen, because the Grand Empress's son was his daughter's. Perhaps he wanted to make Francis Dudley the crown prince. To seize power, Killian froze, reanalyzing everything. All this time, he'd given the impression he had no desire to be crown prince, so there was no reason for them to threaten him. But if those around him were constantly in danger, like Julietta, Killian resolved he couldn't let things get any worse. I won't foolishly remain silent anymore. Meanwhile, Julietta had moved into the mansion. Aunt Laban outlined a few points for her to keep in mind during her stay. Firstly, all the mansion servants had accompanied Jane to the villa. They simply think that their little princess will move to a new place for a change of mood. The second issue is the people temporarily working at her temporary residence were also dispatched from the Cialini mansion in the capital. Your job is to act as Iris, lest your identity be exposed. And the most important thing is to be careful, or you'll be caught. The third issue Julietta must face to ensure this mission's success. Iris's health was reportedly stabilizing before her debut to the nobles. That's why she must be careful not to walk around so healthily like now. Perhaps that was it. Julietta simply took off her shoes in annoyance, exhausted, and climbed into bed, almost out of breath. No way. This can't be over in a day or two. She fell back on the bed in exasperation. Do all noble ladies have to live like this? This is so annoying. After a long day of hard work, dawn came again, filling the place with warmth and beauty. It truly made nature lovers like her unable to help but let out a sound of admiration, looking at the vibrant scenery. Just about to say something, a maid pulled her back inside. Contrary to the gentle and calm exterior, inwardly, Laban's face darkened. She reminded sternly, "Early in the morning, before I've even eaten, I've already witnessed this unpleasant scene. Miss, are you serious? She reminded you just yesterday, and you've forgotten almost everything." She also knew that saying it many times wouldn't help, but Marchioness Laban wanted her to clearly remember that Iris had been frail and sickly since childhood, and there was no way she could wake up at this hour and go to the garden with such a rosy complexion. Laban knew Julietta couldn't just lie in bed, but at least she couldn't leave the room on her own. Hearing this, she simply smiled and promised, "Yes, madam." Laban had a few more words for her. "You're giving me a headache early in the morning, and also, you should call me Aunt now." Julietta had to wear the clothes prepared in Bettino until she reached the capital because Ruiz's designs wouldn't fit Julietta's figure, as she wasn't the same as Iris. That's why the Duchess wanted to find a new designer for Julietta, but the maids were worried about Iris, unsure if the perfectionist Duchess would agree. But Laban quickly dismissed the servant's thought. "If you want to start this, you'll have to endure it." Madame Laban's firm attitude made Julietta think beside her. Madame Laban wasn't particularly friendly, but she truly loved her niece, Iris. But just the next day, after 2 months of not seeing her granddaughter, her attitude quickly changed, perhaps blaming the young lady for causing all of this. In a luxurious room, a young man was sternly berating Christine. What a heartless woman. He sat slumped in a chair, complaining, having followed Killian all the way to Bettino, all for love. Making me come all the way here too. How annoying. This man was the first candidate for the throne, Prince Francis. But he didn't immediately understand one thing. Why would Duke Giuliani come here? Was he going to support Killian? The nearby servants speculated that the Duke's heir hadn't been decided yet, so now was the time to suppress his family member, Marquis Harry. But either way, he would never let his child get involved in the fight for the throne. Hearing this, Prince Francis reconsidered the marriage candidate. He really didn't want someone who couldn't bear children to become queen, so the prince might go to Tilia to deal with this, which would result in Christine becoming the highest-ranking noble lady. Maggie. Harris admitted that it would be quite difficult, as killing a frail lady was easy, but dealing with the Duke afterward was tricky. If her death and her maid are suspected, every faction will immediately oppose us. So, rather than negotiating with the Duke, which is risky, Francis found it ironic. Well, should I marry Miss Cialini then? The Marquis didn't think it was bad at all. After all, the prince was interested in the prophecy from 11 years ago. As they spoke, an arm slammed down hard on the table. Prince Francis's face darkened, his eyes cold as he said, "Are you joking with me? Not only are you worried about a dying disciple, but you've also stirred up more trouble. Remember that old woman's prophecy, something even His Majesty the Emperor doesn't know about. A bleeding old woman, her vacant eyes wandering, saying the next empress will be the highest-ranking noble lady of Austin." The man beside her, upon hearing the prophecy, had tortured the old woman, and he was overjoyed. Just as I thought, only by torturing someone can you force them to speak. This is what perseverance is. The old woman spoke of a second prophecy. The one who will become emperor can only be a legitimate prince. Hearing this, a look of surprise suddenly appeared on his face. Has the tortured person gone mad? This man was Prince Francis's maternal relative, Duke Dudley. He wouldn't know that there was currently no legitimate heir, as the second wife's identity was unknown, so she hadn't informed His Majesty. The initial prophecy didn't give the teacher that exact scenario, but rather it was deduced through people's conversations or some other means. The second prophecy, she only heard the content of the jubilant people's conversations, saying the emperor, the legitimate son, had been in a coma for a long time. Now Duke Dudley was doubting her words. So why tell me? Her expression wasn't very good. There's only one reason a prophet would make an uncertain prophecy, and that's when they want to create chaos with their prophecy. Duke Dudley didn't care about the chaotic prophecy. He was just thinking that the legitimate prince referred to the next generation. In any case, by that time, the throne would have changed hands. He only cared about whether Prince Francis would ascend to the throne. The old woman laughed again. This might be verified soon. She was the empire's greatest prophet, chilling from Bettino. One day, 8 years ago, just as she prophesied, the queen saved Prince Killian's life from that terrible massacre. Due to interfering with the natural order and the flow of fate, the prophet lost her ability to foresee and no longer appeared. But after the queen's death, she suddenly approached the emperor. After Duke Dudley received the news, she went to some remote, desolate place, and by the time she escaped, she had completely disappeared. Since then, no one has seen her again. At this moment, Prince Francis arrived at Marquis Inn's mansion. He greeted respectfully. "Your Highness, did you have a safe journey?" Francis's voice replied, "You want to know what happened to me? I must be fine. That's why I can stand before you." Christine also ran out to greet him, paying her respects to the crown prince. Then Prince Francis asked the Marquis beside him to excuse himself for a moment, as he had private matters to discuss with Christine. The Marquis stepped aside, allowing the two to converse privately. But within the room, even heavy breathing wasn't enough for Christine. "Joyful Christine, how have you been lately? You must be happy to have finally seen Killian as you wished." She didn't respond, instead changing the subject. "What brings you here today? Aren't you with Princess Haint?" Hearing this, Francis sat down in a chair with his legs crossed, his tone laced with sarcasm. Because she's been stuck in a corner for too long, she probably hasn't heard the rumors yet. Now, the whole of Austin is talking about Miss Haint. What happened? Christine asked blankly. Miss Haint fell in love with Count Dirio and got pregnant. Hearing this, her face instantly paled. Prince Francis continued to mock her, her expression finally changing. He waved his hand, letting her finally understand. "Why I rushed here. Currently, among all the ladies in Austin, the most noble is Christine." Prince Francis said seriously, "Well, I am a generous husband, so I won't blame you for pursuing such a man." That large hand tightly gripped Christine's face. Francis leaned in close, saying, "But once you marry me, it won't happen a second time." Christine's hand, still trembling, grasped the prince's wrist, pulling it away from her face. She said awkwardly, "Among the unmarried noble ladies, there is still someone of very high standing, Miss Iris Cialini." Prince Francis knew she didn't want to marry him, but pairing him with someone on the verge of death was truly too much. Well, in truth, he wasn't even sure if she was still alive. Christine's mention of Duke Cialini arriving in Bettino felt like a lifeline. "I heard there will be Miss Cialini's debutante party in the fall, and they will announce the heir after the party." She said this because she was worried, trying to create a safety net for herself. But Francis didn't care about that. The consequences of the debutante party wouldn't be immediate, and besides, even divine power couldn't cure that kind of illness. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Francis had heard this news from the doctor 3 months ago. It could be false information, but that wasn't the reason the Duke dealt with that doctor by her side. Christine continued humbly, "I don't know the exact situation, but perhaps the princess's health isn't that bad." The Duke said that the Miss's health has significantly improved, and he is delighted to be able to hold the party smoothly. If that's the case, then the highest-ranking noble you're looking for isn't me. Christine's words made perfect sense. she truly didn't want to marry Prince Francis. He knew that too, didn't he? Wouldn't it be more beneficial for your highness to consolidate the Duke's family power if you married Miss Cialini? Francis suddenly burst into laughter, startling Christine beside him. Ha ha, how absurd. Francis looked at the trembling girl before him and said, "Facing me makes you this scared? You don't want to marry me?" A glint of amusement flickered in Francis's eyes. Think carefully, Christine. Someone like Duke Giuliani wanted to avoid entanglement with the royal family more than anyone. Does he really think he'll give his daughter to me? She thought. And even if Iris's illness had truly improved, who knew what other tricks the Duke had up his sleeve? He just wanted to make Christine the highest-ranking lady. Christine's already dazed face became even more blank, unable to utter a word. She said nothing, and now Francis wasn't pleased at all. He felt a surge of anger. "Christine, how dare you refuse me?" "Your Highness," Christine stammered. "I didn't mean that. How could I?" Francis assumed Christine truly liked Killian. Killian, whose head was filled with only flowers and grass, would surely die if he ascended the throne. Christine knelt down and pleaded, "Your Highness, I beg you, I'll do anything. But Your Highness, Killian, if you spare his life, I will spend the rest of my life in Bettino and will not step foot in Austin where Your Highness resides." That suggestion sounds interesting. So Francis thought of an idea. That was for Christine to seduce Princess Giuliani and hand her over to him. If successful, after ascending the throne, Francis would spare Killian's life. Her job was to tell Miss Iris that Prince Francis was charming. The Duke loved his daughter very much. If she took the initiative, he would have to comply. However, Christine felt something was amiss. Suddenly, Francis's hand grabbed her shoulder. Unwilling to let go, his hand loosened slightly, then pushed her to the ground. Prince Francis questioned, "You said you would obey all my commands, but it was all a lie." Christine had to do it no matter what. If she didn't, he would spread nasty rumors about her to Killian. At this moment, Lady Maribel was standing at the gate of a large mansion, two people whispering, "Maribel, that devil woman." Even though the person was standing right in front of them, they didn't interfere. She married an old geezer. As long as there's money, everything's fine. Two more people whispered, saying she was willing to do anything as long as there was a chance of success. Maribel probably had never met these people, and she didn't care what they thought of her. After all, the gossip of the world didn't matter. 20 years ago, after my former husband, whom I married for future gains, passed away, I bought the bankrupt Eileen brothel. For me, nothing was more important than future prospects. But only one thing was truly special, different from everything else. A small, blonde girl, Julietta, was staring at the person who had just walked in. Seeing Maribel, the little girl said sweetly, flashing a bright smile. It warmed Maribel's aged heart. Even though I had cast aside all sentiment and was firmly planning for success, Julietta was the only child who earned my love through a moment of sympathy. At that moment, I knew it was time to consider my future and hers. Under the red lights of the street, under the wing of an angel, a group of girls were sold here. That child is not bad either, commenting on hairstyles and eye color. Although not exactly the same, just this much was enough to make her jump in surprise, letting out a faint sound. Seeing the girl's expression, Maribel asked the person next to her, "It seems like this girl is hurting somewhere. Why don't you help her?" The man didn't care at all. These orphans can't do anything for him, so he doesn't even want to call a doctor for no reason. You know, it's fortunate that these children can leave this place. Because even after death, those guys can't escape. Because the journey was long, Maribel wanted to treat the girl before heading to the new place. The girl beside her helped the blonde girl up, so Maribel asked, "Do you use this carriage to entertain guests as well?" The owner explained to the madam that this child was sold by her father to pay off debts. He was sold when he was even smaller, just a small matter, but perhaps fate had already decided everything. Hearing this, Madame Maribel threw down the money bag, just when I needed to find another suitable child, although her task today was only to buy that blonde child. Blondes were rare, even if frail or sick, so there was no choice but to buy both. The girl was bought under these circumstances, and she happily thanked Maribel for bringing her here. So she named this little girl Daphne. The madam said firmly, "Do you know how lucky you are today?" "Yes, I know." Maribel continued with a touch of formality. "I saved you from the unfortunate future of the red light district, so you must repay me, mustn't you?" The girl, Daphne, hearing this, looked at her madam with a curious expression and nodded slightly. Finding an intelligent girl made her madam happy. The girl's job was to take care of this blonde child until they returned to Austin, to the Tillia mansion. according to Miss Cialini's maid, to be Maribel's eyes and ears there. It was another tiring day for her this morning. Julietta was diligently studying to master the knowledge befitting a noble lady. Lengthy and confusing figures, the names of kings and leaders poured forth. Beside her was Aunt Laban, who was earnestly supervising her studies. The second imperial consort is the birth mother of the fifth prince, Killian Michael Headford Valentino. Zero turn. The more she read, the more confused Julietta became, causing her to slump onto the table with a groan. Why do all the royals have such long names? Not yet settled, Aunt Laban glared at me fiercely again and again. Would you die if you didn't spout nonsense? With that, she pulled a stack of continental history books from a bookshelf taller than her line of sight and placed them on the table. The task was to be tested on them every day in order of country, starting tomorrow. The helpless Julietta could only obediently agree. A servant suddenly entered and reported, "Madam, Miss Alice wishes to see you at the villa." Hearing this, she immediately told the servant that she would go as soon as her lessons were finished. But the servant then notified them to go together. The feeling of being ordered around displeased her. "Are you saying I have to go there right now?" "Yes, that Miss requested Madam to come to the villa immediately." Hearing this, Julietta, who was studying, looked up at the two of them. Aunt Laban knew her niece was selfish, but she was gradually becoming uncomfortable. Even though she was taking the mistress's place, the true power in this mansion still belonged to Alice, so there was no way to resist. As soon as they arrived, Alice greeted them warmly, inviting them in and mentioning that today's fresh tea had arrived. Alice smiled gently, knowing her aunt liked this tea and had specially prepared it to bring over. She invited her aunt to sit down, even though Julietta was still standing there. Then she offered a barbed comment. "That filthy, abandoned stepchild image is gone. You've worked hard, Auntie." Her aunt neither criticized nor praised her, as Julietta had learned basic etiquette and dance when she was young, so she learned quickly. Insulting me once wasn't enough. Alice didn't like Julietta's character at all. Her behavior and mistakes affected the child's honor, so she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Her words hinted at a hidden sarcasm. Then she suddenly burst into laughter. "Ha ha!" Seeing Julietta become a little flustered by these actions, Alice felt a bit of glee. "See, Annie, everyone has their place, no matter how much noble etiquette she learns." Alice still thought of her as just a maid. "That's all it is." She coughed, looking tired. Aunt Laban, knowing her niece was a little too excited, gently reminded her, "Don't you know that being overly excited affects your health? Be careful." Seeing her aunt's slightly changed attitude, she immediately assumed her aunt wanted to help Julietta. But the woman just took a leisurely sip of tea and said, "There's so much to do this afternoon, yet I'm wasting time here. I'm just worried that if this fails, there will be unimaginable consequences. Miss Cialini being away for a long time will attract a lot of attention. Now, just one small mistake, and everything will collapse." Lately, she hadn't even been able to sleep. Alice asked her aunt, "You won't fail, will you?" Then they both prepared to leave. "I'll be going now. Thank you for the tea. This year's tastes much better." Alice replied indifferently. No matter how sour or sweet it is, its unique flavor cannot be masked. The remaining tea cultivation methods had proven effective, making her realize her niece was learning about tea just like her. When Aunt Laban's brother's wife fell ill, she became very interested in tea cultivation, so Alice promised to send her the flavor she liked, a tea effective for treating headaches. Seeing Mississippi Lane sitting there and having drunk a lot of tea, Julietta felt a little worried. "She's already had a cup, hasn't she? Isn't she drinking too much now?" She also explained the reason, saying that without the tea, the headaches would be unbearable. Seeing this, she also recommended that she see a doctor, as finding the cause was crucial for proper treatment. But even the doctors have given up on this, so she guessed it was a mental illness. Suddenly, Julietta hesitated and said, "You're afraid I'll make a mistake, right? But that's not the main reason." She was planning something big. Plus, the headaches after graduation had been going on for 2 or 3 years now. Hearing Julietta's thoughts made her reconsider. If there's no specific cause for the headaches, then she should reduce her tea intake. A good idea flashed through her mind. What about sunlight? Exercise? She excitedly waved her arms. Lack of exercise is the root of all illnesses. Taking a walk in the fresh air is good, or try warming up with a shoulder massage. Looking at the girl moving like that. What are those dreadful movements? Even if she's a noble lady, that kind of behavior is far from ladylike. Hearing this, Julietta approached her aunt. "Don't be like that, come on. She placed her hands on Laban's shoulders, which felt much more comfortable. If you loosen up your neck and shoulders every day, your headaches will lessen. As she gently massaged her aunt's shoulders, she softly said, "Now, slowly reduce your tea intake." After the massage, she immediately asked for feedback. Aunt Laban felt much more stable after the massage, truly more comfortable, and her mind felt clearer. Hearing this, Alice felt a surge of joy. Yes, her voice was filled with delight. The weather is lovely today as well. What do you think about having tea in the garden now? My body is slowly recovering, and I can walk around again. These words didn't sound restrictive or exhausting, and Laban knew this. She softly remarked, "You must have been frustrated." She truly was frustrated, as she hadn't left her room for nearly a month. Julietta now only wanted to suggest she take a walk and breathe in the fresh air here. Noticing that she hadn't addressed her as Aunt Laban, she immediately reminded her that even if she liked calling her auntie, she still needed to learn to address her as Madam. Realizing her mistake, Julietta pouted, about to ask a question, but she cut her off. "That's right, today's lesson is over. Quickly move the tea table to the garden." "As you say." Then she told Baron, the servant beside her, to bring the tea there. It had been a long time since she had enjoyed her favorite tea. 2 months had passed, and Alice was now questioning the servant why her aunt hadn't come there yet. "I told you to fetch her immediately." But the servant tried to explain. "Madam seems to be very busy. I will inform her as soon as possible." But she didn't listen. "I said, fetch her immediately." Alice stamped her foot, crumpling the documents in her hand, and said angrily, "Has that girl been behaving herself? Never mind her." Hearing her aunt's voice, Alice turned around and looked at her. Her aunt added, "You've done well, better than expected." Alice looked at her face and said angrily, "Auntie, what do you mean by better than expected? Does she resemble Miss Cialini more than I do?" Aunt Laban quickly denied it, saying that was impossible as she couldn't compare to Alice's elegance and demeanor, and advised her not to think that way. Alice's arrogance swelled even more. "Ha!" She immediately brought up Julietta's past to mock her. "I heard her mother was an actress in the theater. Such a lowly place." Hearing these harsh words, Laban felt her niece was being too sensitive. She looked increasingly pale, and she wished she would take better care of her health. She immediately replied, "I don't care about her at all. But life in the villa is so strange. That's why I reacted that way." Her voice was laced with hostility and resentment. "I want to return to where I used to live as soon as possible." "When is she leaving?" This was something even Aunt Laban couldn't resolve quickly, as the longer the procedures in the capital lasted, the better, meaning limited contact with others before and after the debut. She reminded Alice of Julietta's background. "If Marchioness Ansi sees that girl, they'll think we took her life, and our lives will be in danger." Alice coughed upon hearing this. "Our lives?" "No, Alice doesn't care about that. It's just a lowly child's life." She felt her aunt was too biased towards that girl. Laban hurriedly explained that it was all for Alice's sake. Yes, Alice realized she was the one who started all of this, so she would be the one to end it. She wrote a letter to her father, asking him to get rid of the girl in front of her. At this moment, in the garden, Julietta was dozing off in a beautiful, tranquil space. Diane appeared out of nowhere and, seeing her slumped over, noticed something, the book she had been carrying around. Suddenly, someone spoke. "Do you like that book?" Seeing the girl staring at it so intently, Julietta looked up curiously. Startled by the voice, Diane quickly said, "I'm sorry, it's just that sleeping here isn't good for your health, so..." The girl had simply wanted to wake her up. I was just asking." Julietta gave a bright smile. Stretching, she said cheerfully, "Thank you for waking me. You're so kind. If it were me, I would have pretended not to see and gone somewhere else." You see, the little girl, not understanding the hint, felt a little embarrassed. She replied, "No, not at all." Diane was a little shy. In truth, she was curious about the books but couldn't read. Hearing this, Julietta opened her heart to the little girl. "You want to read, don't you?" Hearing this, Diane nervously waved her hands. Someone like me." Before she could finish, Julietta interrupted her. "Were you about to say, how could someone like me?" "You weren't going to say that, were you?" These words left Diane speechless, unsure of what to say. Julietta quickly apologized, saying she hadn't meant it that way. "But don't make that kind of face." Folding her arms, she continued the conversation with a smile. You haven't been here long, so it must be hard to adjust, right? Even in front of Madame, I understand that feeling. She simply hoped that Diane would value herself, no matter what. Because ambition that harms others is unacceptable, but ambition to improve oneself isn't a bad thing. So Julietta wanted the little girl to come over whenever she had free time, because Julietta would teach her to read. After some time had passed since they went inside, Julietta didn't rest, as she had to practice her dancing. When asked, a joyful expression spread across Diane's face. Yes, Mississippi. It's much more natural than before. The two thanked each other, and Diane's handwriting had also improved. This showed that both were putting in the effort. Yes, I finished reading all the books you gave me. It's all thanks to Madame. No, Julietta knew how hard she'd been working. Keep up the good work. 10 years from now, when you look back, you can smile without any regrets. Capture the fleeting moments of the past and experience all those things and emotions with overflowing happiness. Diane also hoped that 10 years later, she could be as happy and fulfilled as Julietta. Okay, Julietta raised her voice. Then, promise me you'll do your best until then. She gave Diane a bracelet as a token of their connection. The girl accepted the bracelet, a little surprised. Actually, Julietta is going to the capital tomorrow to prepare for her upcoming coming-of-age ceremony, so she wanted to give it to you now. It may not be worth much, but she made it herself. Whenever you feel tired, just look at it, as if I'm always by your side. She chattered on. It's a secret, but who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, it'll be a product of some famous brand. Diane remained silent, saying nothing. Holding the book, she thought, hoping that everything she did wouldn't dim the young Mrs. Light. So, in the evening, Julietta and Aunt Laban went to the inn. She felt a sense of familiarity. It was the place she and Killian had stayed when she was still a maid. Although he was a haughty and hard-to-please prince, Julietta felt that he also had a very friendly and approachable presence. Compared to someone, His Highness is much kinder. The two went inside, and Aunt Laban said she needed to check the itinerary, so she suggested Julietta go eat first. You must be hungry after not resting all day. Julietta, faced with this strange situation, widened her eyes and mouth in surprise. Seeing her like that, Aunt Laban quickly said, "Don't look at me like that." As an aunt who cares for her niece, these things are perfectly normal. The more you wear that slightly surprised expression, the more people will suspect you. Aunt Laban looked at her, unsure what to say. Julietta felt that ever since she'd been drinking less tea and walking more around the mansion, the effects had been excellent. Laughing brightly, she spoke, her expression softer than before. She denied it as well, but her tone hadn't softened much. Just thinking about Duncan, but my mind is much clearer. However, she still wanted to remind her not to do that. When you see the Duke, because if you try too hard to prove the father-son relationship, you'll anger him. So Laban wanted to remind her to be very careful about this. Hearing this, her voice became very serious, and she replied, "Yes, I'll remember and never forget my place." Her heart was filled with anticipation. Just a little more patience, and I'll be free, and my dream will come true. 2 months' salary as the Crown Prince's personal maid. With the money from this mission, she now had sufficient funds. With this money, an amount that would take a lifetime to earn, she might finally be able to have her own design studio. But there was one problem, and that was that after the mission was completed, Duke Giuliani might secretly abandon her. Like a catastrophe. At this moment, on Killian's side, he was still humming a song, thinking about her. I really haven't met anyone like her. I don't know if she flew up to the sky or disappeared into the ground. Oswald beside him was startled by him, complaining, "Oh my God, the prince is still infatuated with that servant." That's why they were now going to Lillian Adams. Besides introducing today's topic, he also mentioned that since the actress was the one who introduced Julietta as a maid, she must have kept in contact with her. Hearing this, Killian could only grasp at a sliver of hope, feeling deeply uneasy. "Julietta, where on earth have you gone?" Seeing Killian like this, Adam could only sigh and say, if he's already this infatuated, he really has to go find her, even if it means turning over the entire continent. Suddenly, Oswald let out a gasp of surprise, happily telling Killian, "Your Highness, look over there. She's beautiful. So stunning. Even I'm surprised." He was certain that with your beauty, the prince would soon fall head over heels. Adam also looked up and saw that it was Duke Giuliani's carriage, which meant they concluded that it was the Duchess that day. Hearing this, Killian folded his arms, thinking that the young lady had finally appeared. So, When he returned to Austin, he would have plenty of time to see her. So, he told everyone to sit tight. After a while, he saw Laban's wife come out, the chattering not ceasing. She was probably going to the mansion with the young lady. So Killian looked up at the carriage and said, after Duke Girani passed away, she took care of the young miss like her own daughter. Of course, she'll go too. Suddenly, Julietta poked her head out to take a look, an angelically beautiful face. Killian froze in place. Only a few seconds passed before Julietta quickly pulled the curtains, covering her face. This left Killian, who was sitting in the carriage, a little confused. Noticing her strange behavior, Killian turned to ask his friend, "You said Miss Giuliani has been in Tulia since she was young, so she's never been to the capital, right?" "That's right," Oswald replied coldly. "So, when she makes her public appearance, no one has seen her face before. So now she's the hottest topic of the year. But, Killian, when I saw her, it felt really strange, like seeing a ghost." Hearing this, Oswald couldn't help but tease. A young lady hidden away in Tulia, when she sees the royal palace, she must be very eager to get married. Not only Miss Anassi, but also Miss Cialini didn't marry him. Oswald's voice was full of sarcasm. "How can I stop the fight between those two women?" Maribel looked at the young miss with pity, saying, "This is truly unfortunate. Such is fate. When born in the pleasure district, even so, thanks to Duke Cialini's potion, it will at least be a painless departure. I hope you'll be happier in the next life." Lady Lewis coldly asked Maribel, "What happened?" Maribel evaded the question. "I don't know. As soon as the performance ended, I came down and saw the girl dead on the floor like this. Check the corpse's eye color." Watching the trembling maid check. "They're green, madam." Maribel suddenly spoke up, wondering how the girl could have died at that exact moment, as if she was waiting for the Marquis to leave Australian Lady Lewis. Lady Lewis angrily asked if she was now being suspected of being the murderer. Maribel laughed and said, "Of course not. I just think the timing is too coincidental." Lady Lewis glanced disdainfully at the corpse and said, "Ha, it's a bastard. It shouldn't have been born in the first place. This is just its fate. Dispose of the body, bury her where her mother died, and don't let the Marquis know about this." Maribel replied respectfully, "Yes, madam. Don't worry, I'm not the type to make small mistakes. Since the girl is dead, madam, your burden has been lessened somewhat tonight. Sleep well," Lady Lewis said coldly, her words laced with cruelty. "That child, I raised her until now. It's truly unfortunate, but the Marquis believes that a child who is already dead doesn't need to be remembered anymore. She's already dead." A line of royal guards and maids stood solemnly, welcoming the princess back to the mansion with loud and respectful greetings. Julietta smiled radiantly, warmly thanking everyone for their welcome. Laban quietly asked, "Where's my brother?" The butler replied, "He received an urgent notification from the Tullio estate, so he left early. It seems he took the opposite road from Madame." Laban felt suspicious at such a crucial moment. He probably left to avoid seeing this child. "But you pushed everything onto me and just left." Laban turned and said to Julietta with a warm smile, he needed to take care of something before the debut party. It must have been urgent, something that had to be done. "And, Julietta, you must be tired. I'll have dinner sent to your room. My brother isn't here, so for now, just eat in your room. Aside from me and Vera, everyone else is her enemy." The mansion's servants hadn't seen her in a long time, but they welcomed her warmly. But the moment she turns her back, they'll start looking down on her, ignoring her. Julietta nodded obediently, saying, "I'll be careful with my actions, Aunt Laban." Laban sighed, thinking, "I need to quickly prepare the clothes. The ones I packed in a hurry aren't suitable for Miss Cialini's status. I have to find a new designer. I don't know where to find one now." The designer. Julietta hesitated, wondering if it would be strange to offer her own services. Julietta softly asked Laban, "Can you find a reliable designer? What if Lady Lewis asks Miss Julietta about the new designer? I'm worried she'll notice the change in the shape and style of the clothes she used to wear." Hearing this, Laban felt a bit worried. The situation is strange now. No matter what you do, unless she wears a dress so stunning that people can't help but stare. "We'll send someone to the Eileen Theater as soon as possible to arrange a schedule. Maribel, the unit leader, has a wide network of contacts. They might be able to find a suitable candidate." Under these circumstances, Julietta, completely veiled, headed towards the Eileen Theater. The people there began to whisper, spreading baseless rumors. It seems the rumors are true. Miss Cialini must have an ugly birthmark on her face, which is why she covers herself completely when she goes out. I heard she's suffering from many illnesses. It's truly shocking. Lady Lewis has never even seen Miss Julietta in person. Maribel, with a brilliant smile, warmly welcomed Princess Julietta on her first visit to their opera house. It's an honor for all of us. Everyone has been curious about the young lady, as she hasn't shown her face since the news broke that someone was coming here today. Many seats have already been taken. Laban, without wasting any breath on pleasantries, asked directly, "Did you find someone?" Maribel smiled mysteriously, saying, "Yes, madam, but we needn't look far and wide. It's right before our eyes. Julietta, an outstanding designer, is right here." Julietta, surprised, asked why her. Maribel said not to be modest. Emily and Sophie had seen her sketches and were amazed at just a glance. "I saw the stage actors wearing those costumes, and the audience was truly impressed by them. They said it was brilliant to come up with such designs." Julietta hesitated slightly. "But I also, if there was any joy in my boring first half of life, it was designing stunning clothes." "My goodness, Julietta, you drew these?" "My heavens, this is the first time in my life I've seen dresses like this. Every time I was working, you were being all sneaky, and it turns out you were drawing these things." Julietta said cautiously, her eyes brimming with happiness. "I didn't plagiarize, Emily. Well, I drew them myself. These will be the designs I debut to everyone when I leave the opera house." Maribel continued. "Emily and Sophie showed them to everyone, doing what they thought was best for you, keeping a secret. These people have always cared for and looked after you, so don't worry about being betrayed." Julietta was stunned that Emily and Sophie had done this. Laban watched from the side, thinking, "This girl looks delighted. The drafts the little girl clung to so tightly back then, she's made them a reality herself. The young lady still needs a suitable name for a high-end dress design shop. A designer who never reveals herself to the public sounds wonderful. Emily and Sophie will be at the shop, and you can have them make Julietta's clothes. If you want to keep it a secret, what could be more perfect than having Maribel spread the word and inquire about shop?" Laban nodded, replying, "All right, we'll do as you say. Find a suitable place to design clothes." Julietta softly called out, Aunt." Julietta excitedly asked if she could go and find a shop herself. Hearing this, Laban immediately scolded her for talking nonsense. "Miss Cialini gonna look for a sewing room? That's preposterous." Julietta, knowing she was misunderstood, explained, "Of course I wouldn't do such a thing as a noble. I still have the ugly wig from when I was little. If I wear that and Vera's clothes, who would know I'm Princess Julietta?